Chapter 3383. That was because the foot he stepped on was instantly turned into ashes. Not only that, but his entire body was also cut into a bloody mist. Then he dissipated between heaven and earth. A semi-sage expert had been killed in a matter of seconds. It had happened in the blink of an eye. This astonishing scene had made many people hold their breaths. However, there were also some powerhouses who sneered. How could it be so easy to enter the great sage's pagoda? Were they really overestimating themselves? Everyone waited patiently. In fact, many people didn't know what they were waiting for, but no one dared to try. However, after a day, the Sikong clan made their move. They were using their own blood outside the great sage's pagoda, especially the edge of the entrance, which was smeared with blood. It seemed like they wanted to use their own blood to gain the ancestors' approval, so that they could enter. Seeing this scene, the others became uneasy. If only the Sikong clan went in, and the others could only watch from the outside, it would be really awkward. When that happened, they would be jealous to death. The dark red divine dragon was also a little worried. Damn it, can't we try again? He was also a little impatient, but Lin Xian held him back. Don't be anxious, wait and see. So many people want to make a move, let's just watch. He wouldn't force himself to take the lead. However, at this moment, when the Sikong clan's blood dyed the entrance red, a shocking change occurred. Suddenly, a vortex appeared at the entrance, and a terrifying fluctuation spread out in all directions. Everyone thought it was some kind of attack, and they all retreated. However, Lin Xian's eyes lit up. It turned out that what appeared from inside wasn't an attack, but pills. One pill after another, densely packed together. There were more than 100 of them. Every single one of them was crystal clear. These were saint pills, and they might have been refined by the great sage. Someone screamed, and the others all looked up at the sky. Their eyes turned blood red. Pills, what an unexpected surprise. They originally thought that there was no hope of entering, but they didn't expect the Sikong clan to cause such a change. So many pills were spat out. More than 100 saint pills. If he were to obtain one and consume it, his fighting prowess would increase tremendously. Even if he didn't consume it himself, he could still bring it back to the elders of his clan. Thinking about how they would be heavily groomed by their families in the future, and how they would soar into the sky, they all trembled with excitement. Hurry up and snatch it. These people were crazily snatching it. Heavenly Dragon Divine Claw. The dark red divine dragon couldn't wait any longer. When he found out that this was a sacred pill, he attacked decisively. Countless dragon claws appeared in the sky. Damn it, get out of here. Many people attacked like crazy, but they were all blasted away by the dark red dragon with a roar. At this moment, the dark red divine dragon's strength had increased greatly after cultivating with the demonic blood. Lin Xian, Yin Ruyu, the North Demon, and the others all took action as well. However, when they got 20 of them, they stopped decisively. He didn't attack again, because if they snatched it all away, it would definitely lead to a group attack. There were so many experts around, and it would not do them any good to continue fighting. They might as well quit while they were ahead. There were more than 20 pieces, which was equivalent to getting 1/5 of the total. They were already satisfied. As expected, although some people were unwilling, they still gave up when they saw Lin Xian's lineup. Moreover, there were more than 80 pills around. If they fought with all their might, they might still have a chance. In an instant, the others attacked crazily. The people from the Sikong family also roared angrily. Damn it, stop. This is our item. They were truly infuriated. They had used their own blood to create this. This great sage tower was originally their Sikong family's private property. But now, who cared if it belonged to their family? The surrounding people were already jealous. It was already good enough that they didn't attack the Sikong family directly. In the end, the remaining sacred pills were divided among the people from the Sikong family: Vermilion Bird Palace, Dragon Valley, Dark Moon Temple, and 8 Wind Palace. Only a dozen pills were left, and they were scattered in the hands of the others. They couldn't accept it. They couldn't accept it. Many people roared crazily. How could there be enough to go around? They stared ahead with greed on their faces. At this moment, the people from the Sikong family were ready to enter. Because they didn't get much before, It wasn't enough to go around. So they decided to go in. When they saw this scene, many people surrounded them. The people from the Sikong family sneered. Can you enter? If you can't, then stay here. If you dare to come out, we'll kill you. The people from Dragon Valley said coldly. The people from Eight Wind Palace also said, yes, you'd better cooperate and find a way to let us in. Otherwise, none of you will be able to leave this void ocean. Their voices were filled with endless dominance. The people from Dark Moon Temple and Vermilion Bird Palace also looked unfriendly. The surrounding people were also eyeing them covetously. It seemed that if they couldn't enter, they would really stay here until the end of time. When they saw this scene, the young disciples of the Sikong family looked extremely upset. The powerhouses had said that they didn't need to care about them. They just needed to let them in. So what if these people went in? The other party was not from the Sikong family, so they definitely wouldn't have an advantage over them. Therefore, the people from the Sikong family ignored them and walked straight ahead. The people behind him followed closely behind. Lin Xian and the others were also following closely behind. However, after walking for a while, they stopped. Many people behind them shouted angrily, "Damn it! What's going on?" Could it be that the Sikong family wanted to go back on their word? They were afraid that the other party would shake them off. However, the voice of the Sikong family came from the front. 3 paths have appeared in front of us. Which path should we take? What? 3 paths? Some people were shocked. Could they be lying to us? However, at this time, the people from Dragon Valley and Eight Wind Palace also said that there were indeed 3 paths. Damn it! Shut up. Otherwise, we'll kill all of you. When these words were said, everyone fell silent. The people from the Sikong family also frowned. 3 paths had appeared in front of them. Which path should they take? They sensed carefully and even used their bloodline power to test it. However, they found that the 3 paths were exactly the same. They couldn't tell which path was which. This scene surprised them a little. However, in the end, the people from the Sikong family decided to split into 3 paths. There had to be a group that could enter. This was the safest way. When they saw that the Sikong family had split into 3 paths, the surrounding people hurriedly discussed. Soon, the people from Vermilion Bird Palace, Dark Moon Temple, and Dragon Valley also decided to split into 3 paths and followed closely. They wouldn't let go of any possibility. Chapter 3384. Lin Xian looked at Little White. Little White also shook its head. It couldn't see clearly. It was too chaotic. Lin Xian sighed. There was nothing he could do. Even Little White couldn't see clearly. He could imagine how powerful the great sage was. He said, "Looks like we have to split into 3 groups. How about this? I'll take 1, Ryu will take 1, and you and the North Demon will take 1. This way, we won't be left empty-handed." Just as the Dark Red Divine Dragon and the North Demon were about to leave, Lin Xian was stunned. He said, "Come here." Hearing this, the Dark Red Divine Dragon was stunned. They returned to Lin Xian's side again. What happened? What happened? Didn't they say they would each take 1 path? "Kid, what did you find?" they asked. Lin Xian said, "Something's wrong. Look at Sikong Jing." He looked up at Sikong Jing and found that there were many strong cultivators of the Sikong family surrounding him. They seemed to be protecting him. "What's going on? Didn't you find it?" Previously, Sikong Jing had drawn blood first, and then the other family members had dripped blood. This meant that Sikong Jing's bloodline might be very pure in his family. Hearing this, the North Demon and the other 2 took a deep breath. They knew this situation. Even in the same family, there were differences in bloodlines. Obviously, Sikong Jing's identity was very special. "Kid, do you mean we should follow that guy?" the Dark Red Divine Dragon asked. Lin Xian nodded. Yes, we should follow them. Although the Sikong family was divided into 3 groups, it was obvious that Sikong Jing's path was the most likely to arrive. He's taking the east path. Let's follow him. Speaking of this, Lin Xian strode forward. Yan Ruyu and the other 2 also took a deep breath and followed. Originally, every path was very crowded. Now that Lin Xian and the others were heading east, many people were dissatisfied. "Damn it, get lost. One of the half-saints roared. He didn't even turn his head. He just slapped back. In this place, it didn't matter who they killed. They wouldn't show any mercy. This palm strike was extremely terrifying. The 5 fingers seemed to have turned into 5 stars, blooming with extremely dazzling light. This was the 5-star fist. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. This was an expert. Who was it that dared to provoke such a person? In the next moment, they were stunned because they discovered that the 5-star fist was being held by a large golden hand. Crack! The fist turned into a bloody mist, and the half-saint who used the 5 elements boxing was sent flying by the slap. Get lost! His voice was cold and domineering. Who was it? Many people sucked in a breath of cold air and turned their heads. They saw a young man in a red robe with a cold expression. Beside him, there were a few figures with equally powerful auras. When they saw Lin Xian, many people's expressions immediately changed, as if they had seen a ghost. They turned around and left. Hey, where are you going? Some of his companions exclaimed. The men were so frightened that I didn't go in. They did not even turn their heads. Some of the others were also stunned. What was going on? Could it be that these people were very powerful? Not everyone had seen the faces of Lin Xian and the others, so some people were still puzzled at this moment. Lin Xian did not say anything, but the dark red dragon next to him jumped out and roared. Those who don't want to die, make way for me. This move could be said to be extremely arrogant. Everyone present was a half-saint powerhouse. Who would be willing to make way for others? Immediately some people sneered. Make way? Do you believe that I want skin you and make you into a boot? Boot your ass. 8 styles of the heavenly dragon. The dark red dragon roared, and 8 dragon shadows appeared from its body, instantly blasting those who sneered away. Those people were blasted into pieces, and their blood dyed the ground red. The others were also scared out of their wits. Damn, this method is too powerful, isn't it? The half-saint who used the 5-star fist gritted his teeth. Kid, which sect are you from? Do you dare to tell me your name? Around him, 3 more half-saint powerhouses appeared. Each of them looked unfriendly, and countless stars appeared on their bodies, causing everyone's expression to change. 5-star alignment. The light on their bodies actually gathered together, forming a terrifying formation. The 5 of them roared. The 5-star alignment rushed over like a sharp knife, and many people around were sent flying by this force. Boom! Lin Xian opened the sky with his left hand, and a golden fist like the sun blasted out quickly. It collided with the 5-star alignment. Suddenly, a very terrifying force swept out, and the surrounding people's expressions all changed, because they just wanted to enter the Great Sage Tower. Although there were conflicts, they did not fight. But now, this sudden surge of energy caused everyone's expression to change. They all looked over. In the sky, the golden sun directly smashed the 5-star alignment. Not only that, those powerhouses were also sent flying while vomiting blood, and their faces were full of horror. Not only them, but the surrounding people also fell, and a vacuum appeared. Lin Xian led his people forward, and soon, they reached the front. In the front, the Sikong clan people also frowned, but they did not pay attention to it, and let the people behind fight. It would be best if they killed each other. Only the Sikong clan was left. But at this time, Sikong Jing's body trembled, as if he was being stared at by a pair of eyes. The next time he looked back, he was so scared that his scalp went numb. Damn it, it's you! He screamed like crazy. What's going on? Jinger, who is he? Why is Sikong Jing so scared? The powerhouses of the Sikong clan also frowned. It shouldn't be. Sikong Jing's strength was very powerful, and he was definitely the top among the half-saints. Even if he encountered a saint, he could deal with them. But now this person made him so scared. They also turned their heads and found that the other party was a very young man. Is this Yen Nantian? Could it be that the successor of the great emperor was already this terrifying? Or is he a saint? They could not figure it out. However, Sikong Jing's voice trembled. Elder, let's go quickly. He is Lin Wudi. What? He is Lin Wudi. The Sikong clan elder's eyelids also twitched. They had heard of his name long ago. This was the first time they had seen him. Now that they saw him, he was indeed powerful. Ordinary half-saints could not withstand a single blow from him. Looking at Si Kong's fearful expression, could it be that their genius had actually been defeated by the other party? Thinking of this, their faces darkened, but now was not the time for them to think too much. Let's go quickly. They supported Si Kongjing and sped up. Let's follow. Lin Xian and the others followed closely behind, and soon they all rushed forward. Chapter 3385. He entered that passage. Could it be that he knew where the real passage was? Let's go to that passage. Many people rushed over, and the battle erupted again. Get lost. Damn it, oh go in first. Damn it, oh kill whoever dares to go in. The crazy battle sounded behind them, but it had nothing to do with Lin Xian and the others. Lin Xian and the others followed Si Kongjing and entered the East Passage first. After flying for about half a day, they felt that the front was wide, and there seemed to be a blue light screen. When they passed through the light screen, they found that there was no passage ahead. Instead, it was a vast hall. Was this the inside of the Great Sage Pagoda? After entering, the dark red dragon and the others looked around and were amazed. The inside was much wider than what they saw from the outside. As expected of the Great Sage's work, there was a space inside. Lin Xian frowned. Was there a natural law here? He had been to the Demon Cultivation Valley. He naturally knew that the Demonic Cultivation Valley had its own laws. Some of the powers outside couldn't be used. He wondered if the Grand Sage Tower was that terrifying. He silently sensed. On the other hand, the powerhouses of the Sikong clan ahead were trembling with excitement. Ha 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 ha, I feel it. I feel the same bloodline power as our clan. This must be left behind by our great sage. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at Lin Xian and the others who came in. He sneered. What do you have to fight with us here? A mere Sikong clan dares to be arrogant in front of me? The dark red dragon sneered. Lin Xian opened his eyes and frowned slightly. He had felt that he was indeed suppressed. His strength had been reduced by almost 30%. But was it a natural law? There were no restrictions. Anyone could use it. Lin Xian immediately reminded them to be careful. Their strength had been reduced by 30%. He did not know if the Sikong clan had any restrictions, so they should not rashly start a fight. Hearing this, the dark red dragon, Yin Ruyu, and the others frowned. This was not a good thing, but they quickly shook their heads. Because everyone would be suppressed, not just them. Sure enough, the people who came in later also cried out in surprise. They naturally felt that the power was weaker than before and were extremely surprised. The members of the Sikong clan all laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha, we weren't suppressed. We weren't suppressed. Instead, we felt that our strength had increased. Me too. As expected of the great sage of our Sikong clan. He's so protective of us. They're really too happy. Looking at the people around him, he laughed coldly. Damn dance. I'll let you know what despair is in a while. In this place, they seemed to be the masters as they laughed heartily. When the surrounding people heard this, their faces also changed. But soon their eyes lit up. There was a row of bookshelves there. Were those divine ability manuals? Someone said. He rushed over like a gust of wind. On the other side, someone asked, where are the weapons? Divine weapons? They flew to the other side. In an instant, everyone who came in went crazy. The reason for that was because they discovered that it was simply a treasure trove. Damn it, stop. This is all ours. The powerhouses of the Sikong family roared madly and rushed over in an attempt to stop them. In an instant, the battle started again. It was very intense. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He looked up at the sky because he was looking for the statue of the great sage. However, the void here was very strange. He could only see the third level. He didn't know if there was anything above the third level. It seemed like he had to go to the third level first, and then look at the things above. At the thought of this, he said, do you want to collect treasures here or go to the higher levels? Let's go to the other levels. There are so many good things on the first level. The other levels will definitely have better things. The dark red divine dragon said. The others also nodded. Lin Xian and the others prepared to go to the other levels. They weren't the only ones. The powerhouses of the Vermilion Bird Palace, Dragon Valley, and Eight-Wind Palace were also not satisfied with the treasures on the first level. Along the way, they saw that the entire ground was made of top-grade metal. Even the surroundings were carved out of huge pieces of divine crystals. It was really extravagant. One had to know that divine crystals were cultivation resources in their hands. However, they had become decorative items here. It had to be said that this state of mind was different. Just as Lin Xian and the others were about to enter the second level, the little white monkey suddenly pointed to a dark place behind the stairs. There seemed to be a strange energy fluctuation there. Hearing this, Lin Xian and the others frowned. He said, "Let's go in and take a look." Anything that could attract the little white monkey's attention was definitely not ordinary. They rushed in, but there was a secret door in the dark place of the stairs. The door was dim and hidden in the shadows of the stairs. No one noticed it at all. Lin Xian and the others turned around and found that no one was paying attention to them. It seemed that those people were crazily fighting for treasures. They were all in a frenzy. "Let's go." Lin Xian and the others were very fast. They entered the secret door in an instant. Then, the dark red divine dragon cast a few seals. After entering, they heaved a sigh of relief. Then they looked around. There was a room inside. The whole room was dark green. There was no light, but it gave off a very simple aura. There were no treasures? The dark red divine dragon was a little disappointed. There were no pills, weapons, or secret manuals. However, Yenryu said, "How can there be no treasures? There are circles on the walls." The dark red divine dragon glanced and found that there was a painting on all four walls. It was a landscape painting. This aura was not ordinary. It carried the aura of Tao and an extremely shocking power. Could this be the work of the great sage? Thinking of this, they gasped. They could actually see the great sage's notes with their own eyes. It was definitely not a small matter. No wonder it could attract Little White's attention. "It's so messy here. Oh, keep it first and look at it when it's safe." The dark red divine dragon waved its claws and wanted to grab one of the paintings. However, it was bounced away by a force. "Fuck, it hurts like hell." The dark red divine dragon gasped. Lin Xian said, "Since we can't take it away, let's study it." Lin Xian looked at the four paintings. The four paintings were different. One of them was an endless mountain range. It was densely packed and hidden in the clouds. At the right end of the painting, there were words carved with Tao runes. The mountains were small at a glance. The second painting was of countless flowers. They were as bright as blood and had an indescribable aura. It made people uncomfortable. That painting was also carved with Tao runes. The flowers were mesmerizing. The third painting was a vast expanse of green. It seemed to be a painting of the sky. Chapter 3386. The fourth painting was of 2 rows of mountains that stretched into the sky. Among the mountains, there was a river flowing down from the sky. The river flows into the great wilderness. When Lin Xian and the others saw these 4 paintings, they gasped and looked at each other. These 4 paintings depicted the natural scenery of heaven and earth. But why did they feel that there was an evil aura? It should be the great sage's handwriting. Why don't we try to comprehend it? Yenryu said after looking at it for a while. She looked at the river flowing into the great wilderness. Then a look at this. The dark red divine dragon looked at the sky. The north demon chose to use flowers to dazzle the eyes. Lin Xian took a deep breath and stood in front of the painting. He felt as if his soul had been sucked into the painting. He didn't seem to see a brush gently touching the ground. In front of him was a vast expanse of whiteness. Suddenly mountains appeared. Lin Xian seemed to be standing at the peak of the mountain. He felt that his mental state had changed. In his eyes, everything became tiny and insignificant like an ant. He was like a high and mighty god who could control everything. This change was really magical. It made him a little greedy and lost in it. However, at this moment, the dragon sword soul in his body roared, causing Lin Xian to instantly wake up. What a strange painting. Although it had endless power and made people yearn for it, there was also a force that seemed to want to lock people in the mountains. Indeed, there was a hint of strangeness. However, so what if it was strange? The great sage wasn't someone they could guess. This ability to see how small all the mountains are really was a type of divine ability. This divine ability didn't directly attack people. Instead, it changed one's aura. Once it was used, it would be like an ant meeting a dragon. It would make the enemy tremble and unable to resist. The people of the Situ family cultivated the righteous aura. The Langyastar also said that the great sage of the Void Sea was a great sage who cultivated the righteous aura. He could use his righteous aura to suppress the demonic aura of the Langyastar. It seemed that this was the painting of the great sage. Lin Xian began to comprehend this realm with all his might. However, he remained vigilant and prepared to use the great dragon sword soul at any time. The evil aura just now was really too strange. But fortunately, under the calmness of the great dragon sword spirit, Lin Xian did not lose his mind. After an unknown amount of time, he came back to his senses and took a deep breath. Was the view of all mountains small? It was indeed magical and terrifying. As expected of the great sage's generosity, he looked at the other three and found that they were also infatuated. He coldly snorted and the great dragon sword spirit circled around them. Suddenly, the three of them woke up. Among them, Yanryu didn't seem to be affected much. However, the dark red divine dragon and the north demon looked terrified. His back was drenched in cold sweat. Damn it, what's going on? What happened just now? They felt a lingering fear. It was as if their souls had fallen into the abyss and wouldn't be able to escape for the rest of their lives. Fortunately, Lin Xian acted. At this moment, Yanryu spoke. There was something wrong with these scrolls. Although they were the work of the mysterious great sage. However, there was a strange and evil power contained within it. Fortunately, as long as we can carefully overcome this evil power, the rest can still be used by us. At this point, Yanryu's lips curled into a smile. I've indeed obtained some good stuff. It's different from the previous ones. You don't say, me too. The dark red divine dragon and the north demon also nodded. They were also extremely excited. It could be said that this was a divine ability, but it was more like a kind of artistic conception. Once it was used, its power would definitely be boundless. Crack. At this moment, the scrolls on the wall rolled up on their own, as if they were not allowed to look at them. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian and the others didn't mind. The great sage's mechanism was so ingenious that if they didn't let them look, they wouldn't even be able to see them. Therefore Lin Xian said, "Let's go." When they came out, they happened to meet a few people who wanted to go up to the second level. Immediately, they stared at Lin Xian and the others. Damn it, how did they get to that place? Was there anything there? These people instantly surrounded them. Many of them endured it and found that there were only a few scrolls around, but they were hung up. They tried for a long time, but they couldn't open them. Instead, they were sent flying by a force. Other than that, there was nothing else. Damn it, they must have taken the treasures. The people around them roared crazily. Among them, one of the sages had an extremely cold expression. Damn brat, speak. What did you get? Hand it over, and I'll spare your lives. There were also two clones of the sages who laughed sinisterly. Why waste time talking nonsense with them? Just capture them, collect their souls, keep their bodies, and take away their storage rings. There were more than 10 figures around them, and they pressed forward together. Among them were the sages and their clones. Their aura was too strong. However, at that moment, Lin Xian took a step forward, and an extremely cold light burst out from his eyes. All the mountains looked small. Countless mountains seemed to have appeared under his feet, and those mountains directly enveloped the sages in front of him. Immediately, those people's expressions changed. Damn it, what's that? The sages roared crazily, and the people around them trembled in fear. They seemed to be standing at the foot of the mountains and looking up at the gods. At that moment, Lin Xian's aura was rising infinitely. Meanwhile, Lin Xian's eyes were so domineering that it was as if he was a supreme king looking down on ants. Plop, plop. The surrounding experts all knelt on the ground and trembled. They could not resist that aura at all. The clones of the sages felt their scalps go numb. Even the sages were sweating profusely, and their robes were all wet. He had seen such a situation before, but that was only when he faced an extremely terrifying sage. The kid in front of him was a half-sage. No matter how powerful he was, He should not be able to suppress him in terms of aura. However, he was trembling all over and did not dare to resist at all. Is this what it means to see all the mountains look small? The dark red dragon, and the others were also extremely surprised. At that moment, Yanryu made her move. Then try my river flows into the great wilderness. As she spoke, countless mountains appeared on both sides of her. There was only one large river under her feet that was surging endlessly. The river water was too violent, and it swept towards those experts in an instant. With a boom, the surrounding half-sages were all swept into the water, and they screamed miserably. The sages' bodies also trembled. Damn it! They gritted their teeth and roared crazily. However, the primordial river was too terrifying. It kept retreating towards them. Run. These people are too strange. The sages took the lead to escape, and the others were scared out of their wits. You want to leave? It's harder than ascending to the heavens. The dark red dragon roared and soared into the sky. A blue sky appeared below it as if it was the firmament, enveloping those people. Those people found it difficult to move. Damn it, why can't I move? Chapter 3387. Haha, look at my mesmerizing flowers. The North Demon also walked out. His 1,000-demon body shone brightly. With a wave of his hand, countless beautiful flowers bloomed around him. The petals danced in the air, forming an illusory array. The half-saints inside were all stunned. They seemed to be lost in it. Some of them even laughed foolishly. However, behind the illusion was a terrifying killing intent. The petals suddenly turned into peerless hidden weapons that pierced through the half-saints' foreheads. Even the half-saints were hit. They screamed miserably. They burned their half-saints' blood and rushed out of the strange scene. Then they escaped. One of the half-saints' clones exploded and escaped with the power of self-destruction. However, the other one was left behind. It was surrounded by countless beautiful flowers and could not escape at all. The remaining half-saints were also killed. The 4 of them used their new ultimate moves. The power was extraordinarily terrifying. Ha 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 ha, this feels so good. The dark red dragon kept roaring. He was too excited. Lin Xian was also shocked. Although he knew that it was powerful, he was still shocked when he used it to defeat people. Even the half-saints could not resist it. The great sage's move was too powerful. He didn't know if it was specially carved or drawn casually. If it was really drawn casually, then that kind of method was definitely heaven-defying. Let's go. Lin Xian and the others retracted the vision and walked toward the second level. They did not know if there were any treasures left behind by the great sage. When they reached the second level, they stopped. They found that the second level was filled with seawater. It was not ordinary seawater. It should be the essence of the void ocean that had been refined by the great sage. Therefore, it was exceptionally terrifying. It was like the Milky Way that blocked their path. It was the Milky Way's water that blocked everyone's path. For a moment, no one dared to go forward. However, after Lin Xian and the others arrived, many others arrived. When they saw the Milky Way's water in front of them, they immediately sneered. What's the big deal? Let me do it. 2 half-saints of the water half-saints came out. They moved very quickly. Fragments of the law of water instantly rose from their bodies. Then they laughed loudly and walked forward. In an instant, they seemed to have turned into water gods. They were extremely agile and entered the Milky Way. However, as soon as they entered, they screamed in pain. The Milky Way's water stirred and swallowed the 2 half-saints of the water half-saints. Then there was no sound. Everyone was so scared that their hair stood on end. The newcomers felt their scalps go numb. Half-saints of the water half-saints, just like that? Half-saints of the water half-saints. Heavens, what kind of water is this? Someone in front sneered. Do you think we won't go if it's so easy? Half-saints of the Milky Ways of water half-saints of the water half-saints of the Milky Way. Half-saints of the half-saints of half-saints half-saints of the half-saints of half-saints. Half-saints of the Milky Way half-saints blood demon half-saint. However, at that moment, the people from the Seacone clan moved. It's almost done. We can go now. They used the blood to surround themselves, and then walked forward. Sure enough, he was fine. Half-saint Milky Demon half-saints of the half-saint to demon demon. Of the They didn't have the Seacone bloodline, but they seemed to have found a flaw. Everyone's path was very winding. It was as if the Milky Way in front of them was an array. As long as they passed through it cleverly, they wouldn't be injured. The people behind also tried to enter, but most of them didn't know the mystery inside. So they were drowned in minutes. Of course, there were also a few saints who relied on their powerful weapons and strength to resist. The remaining people had ugly expressions. Those who could pass were all powerful saints or top sects like the Milky Demon half-saints of the Milky Way. The others didn't have such strength. Were they going to be trapped here for the rest of their lives and only be able to watch those people fight for the treasures? They couldn't accept it. However, at this moment, a few people said, "Get out of the way. We want to cross the Milky Way." Hearing that, the others all turned their heads. 4 figures walked out. The 4 people had their backs to them, but they looked very young. How dare such people cross the river? What a joke. Who were these people? Did they have a death wish? Yes, they weren't saints at all. If they were disciples of a large sect like the Milky Demon half-saints of the Milky Way, they would have followed them. The people in front of them were obviously itinerant cultivators. Everyone sneered. They looked at the backs of the 4 people, waiting to see how they would die. However, the 4 people ignored them. Among them, Lin Xian said, "What do you think? Did you see it clearly? You saw it roughly, but it'll take some time to study it carefully. I think with our strength, we can resist it for a while." Lin Xian nodded and said, "Ruffian dragon, use the heaven-crippling chessboard as a formation. We'll support you in battle and force our way through." The dark red dragon instantly played the heaven-crippling chessboard. Immediately, Lin Xian and the other 2 jumped on it and flew toward the Milky Way. There's really someone who doesn't know what's good for him. The people behind sneered. Soon, they were stunned because they found that the person could block the Milky Way's water and was quickly crossing the Milky Way. That's an array formation. They're using an array formation. Get on that array formation. We can follow them. Suddenly, hope rose in everyone's heart. Previously, they did not dare to talk to Dragon Valley, Ba Huangdong, or the Sage. But now, there were only 4 people, and they were using an ingenious array formation. That made them tempted. In an instant, many people soared into the sky. "Kid, take me over, and I'll give you a weapon. Let me go up, and I'll teach you a divine power for free. Kid, you'd better let us go up, or we'll pull out your tendons and peel off your bones. You'll wish you were dead." Some people tried to tempt him, but most of them were threatening him. In their opinion, it would be easy for them to threaten him with so many people. Hearing those voices, Lin Xian did not even turn his head. "Come up if you want to die, scram if you don't want to die." Oh my, how arrogant can he be? The people behind were furious. Although they could not cross the Milky Way, it did not mean that they were weak. Since they were able to enter this place, they were all powerhouses with tricks up their sleeves. At this moment, they were being berated by a young man who did not even turn his head. Was he looking down on them? In an instant, those people were furious. "Damn it, let's join forces and capture this kid. Well, let them use the array formation to help us cross the Milky Way." Immediately, 8 powerhouses jumped out. Their bodies emitted boundless light that swept through the entire space. Chapter 3388. Do you want to die? Lin Xian snorted coldly and turned around. His qi and blood were like dragons, and an extremely terrifying sword will gushed out and swept in all directions. That aura was so terrifying that it made everyone's expression change. They seemed to have an illusion that they were not facing a young man, but a saint. At that moment, Lin Xian was bursting with power. His black hair danced wildly, and his eyes were like divine swords. The sword aura on his body was like a dragon. When it came out, it let out a terrifying roar and directly shattered the seal. The 8 experts who wanted to attack immediately stopped. They were shocked and their bodies were trembling. He was too strong. He was able to shatter the seal that they worked together to create in an instant. The others screamed, "What? It's him, Lin Wudi. What do you mean by that person is Lin Wudi?" The surrounding people sucked in a breath of cold air. The 8 experts who attacked were about to cry. They dared to cause trouble for Lin Wudi. Were they tired of living? Those people quickly shook their heads. Young Master Lin, we were wrong. Young Master Lin, please spare us. Two of them even knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. When the other 6 people saw that, they also knelt in the void. Their hearts were twitching. If Lin Xian wanted to kill them, it would be a piece of cake. They might be spared from death, but they could not escape punishment. Their cultivation would be reduced by 100 years. Lin Xian flicked his finger. A sword wave rushed out and hit the 8 people. The 8 of them screamed and retreated. Every one of them was injured, and there was a terrifying sword mark on their bodies. That sword had seriously injured them, and even damaged their foundation. They would not be able to recover without 100 years' time. Lin Xian was too decisive, and they could not resist at all. However, the 4 of them did not dare to have any thoughts of revenge. Because their opponent was Lin Wudi, they could only thank Lin Xian for sparing their lives. Lin Xian snorted coldly and turned around with his hands behind his back. They controlled the heaven-crippling chessboard and quickly crossed the Milky Way. The people behind him were all stunned. He was really too powerful. With a raise of his hand, he suppressed all of them. Children should be like Lin Wudi. Those experts were envious. The others were also silent for a while. Yes, if any family had a genius like Lin Wudi, that family would definitely soar to the sky. Lin Xian and the others used the heavenly crippled chessboard to cross the Milky Way and head inside. Soon they passed through the 2nd level and arrived at the 3rd level. From the looks of it, there was only one Milky Way on the 2nd level, which blocked everyone's path. After reaching the 3rd floor, Lin Xian's group stopped. The Sikong clan and those powerhouses who had gone there before were also here. These people were all looking around, and many of them were even looking up. Lin Xian also raised his head and looked up. Previously, when he was on the 1st floor, he could only see the 3rd floor. He couldn't see anything beyond the 3rd floor. Now that he had arrived at the 3rd level, he naturally wanted to take a look. What was above the 3rd level? However, after taking a look, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Above the 3rd level, there was a passageway. The surrounding walls were all flickering with light. They were completely made of divine crystals. There were also some rare metals, which were excellent materials for refining half-saint artifacts. They were precious treasures in the eyes of a half-saint. But here they were casually made into walls. The method was very extravagant. The engraved patterns on the walls were also extremely profound, flickering with incomparably mysterious power. There were even sunken holes on the walls, and there was something on each of them. Some were weapons, some were elixir bottles. Some were paintings or jade slips. It was obvious that these were all treasures stored here. Every treasure was sealed. They couldn't be taken. They could only be taken by breaking the seal. The dark red divine dragon next to him also looked up and exclaimed. The carvings were beautiful. The light made it look like the sky was full of gods and Buddhas. Indeed, there was something at the top. Yin Ryu also exclaimed in surprise. Lin Xian opened his heavenly secret godly eyes and looked carefully. The next moment his pupils shrank. Did he find it? He saw that on the 7th level, which was the top of the pagoda, there was a statue floating in the void. It seemed to be suppressing the entire pagoda. The statue was blue in color, but it was very simple and did not have much light. From this angle, Lin Xian could only see the lower half of the statue. However, with just a glance he could feel the vastness of heaven and earth. As if that person could suppress all things in the universe. The statue of the great sage. That's right, it must be the statue of the great sage. Lin Xian clenched his fists. It seemed that that thing was his ultimate goal. He had to find a way to get it. However, before he could do anything, the people in front turned their heads. They didn't expect that someone else could come from behind. For a moment, they all looked at him. Many people's expressions changed. Lin Wudi, they exclaimed in surprise. Among them, Longshan Yulingzi, and the others' expressions became incomparably ugly. However, the experts of their sex snorted coldly, their eyes gloomy. Was this person Lin Wudi? He was much younger than they had imagined. At this moment, a young figure walked out from the Sikong clan at the front. It was Sikong Jing. Sikong Jing said, "The Sikong clan is willing to join forces with the major sects and the sages." However, other than the sages and sects that are on par with our Sikong clan, I don't want anyone else to appear here. As he said this, he stared at Lin Xian and the others. Immediately, everyone turned their heads, and a cold smile appeared on their faces. They knew that Sikong Jing's words were directed at Lin Wudi. However, they were very confused. With Sikong Jing's status and strength, shouldn't he join forces with all of them to deal with Lin Wudi? Could it be that there was a secret behind this? Before they could figure it out, Long Shan, Huang Batian, and Yu Lingzi also walked out. That's right, I agree. We are all the top forces. Why should a few small rogue cultivators come here to share the treasure with us? Why don't we join forces and get rid of them? That's right, these people are all treasures, especially Lin Wudi, who is the successor of 2 great inheritances. Long Shan's eyes also lit up with a fiery light. The surrounding experts of the major sects all frowned. What's going on? These 4 young people are joining forces, and they want to join forces with all of them? It shouldn't be. After all, whether it was Long Shan, Huang Batian, Yu Lingzi, or Sikong Jing, each of them was an arrogant, peerless genius. They even thought that they were on par with Yin Nantian. Why would such a person join forces with others? This was an extremely shameful thing. However, not only were the 4 top geniuses joining forces, but they were also joining forces with the veteran experts. Chapter 3389. When Lin Xian heard this, he burst into laughter. Although your excuses are dignified, you still can't hide the fear in your hearts. You 4 pieces of trash escaped from me last time, so I didn't continue to chase after you. Why, you still dare to find trouble with me now? Do you think that the elites of your family are here? Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Lin Xian looked around, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Long Shan and the others were so frightened that they took a few steps back. Their faces were extremely ugly. The elites around them gasped. What was going on? Could it be that they had all been defeated by him? Thinking of this, their scalps went numb. This Lin Wudi, how much has he grown? What nonsense! An elite from the Dragon Valley stood out and shouted coldly. Lin Wudi, you think too highly of yourself. Do you think that the elites of the Dragon Valley can't beat you? They just don't want to waste their energy. That's right. The elites of the 8-Wind Hall also stepped out. There's no need to fight one-on-one against you. We have the absolute advantage. Just kill him. Why bother talking to him? The elites of the Dark Moon Temple also stepped out. They also didn't believe that their elites would lose to Lin Xian. They also didn't want to admit this fact. Lin Xian sneered. What's wrong? You're wavering, aren't you? You want to kill me to silence me? Ask yourself, do you dare to fight me one-on-one? I can crush them to death with just one hand. Lin Xian looked at Long Shan and the others with a look of disdain. The elites of the Dragon Valley and the 8-Wind Hall were so angry that they vomited blood. But soon, their faces became extremely ugly. At this point, their elites didn't refute? It was unbelievable. Unless their elites were really defeated by Lin Xian. And it was a crushing defeat that left an indelible shadow in their hearts. What was going on? The elites of the Dragon Valley and the 8-Wind Hall looked at Long Shan, Huang Tianba, Sikong Jing, and the others. Long Shan and Huang Beishan's faces were extremely ugly, and their lips were trembling. Could it be that they had to admit it in public? They weren't a match for the other party, and they were even torn apart by the other party's single move. Were they almost killed? They could not bring themselves to say such words. However, at that moment, Sikong Jing stepped forward and let out a cold laugh. Kid, I'll fight you. Last time, we were careless and suffered at your hands. This time, I will prove in front of all the elders and experts that you are no match for me. Hearing this, the crowd gasped. Was Sikong Jing going to come out? Long Shan, Huang Batian, and Yu Lingzi exchanged glances. Where did this guy get his confidence from? However, they soon recalled that this place was no ordinary place. This was because in the Great Sage Pagoda, the bloodline of the Sikong clan was strengthened, while the strength of the others was suppressed. In this way, the gap between the two sides would be very obvious. If no one was from the Sikong family, then it was fine. However, if they were to fight against the people of the Sikong family, they would be at a disadvantage. This was probably the reason why Xikong Jing dared to come out at this time. Lin Xian looked forward and let out a cold laugh. Oh, you want to fight me? You don't have such courage outside. Why? Do you think you can challenge me in your family's great sage pagoda? Do you think you are a match for me just because my strength is suppressed by 30% and you have the bloodline enhancement? Let me tell you, even in the great sage pagoda, you are still not a match for me. Lin Xian's words were quite arrogant. This was equivalent to directly provoking the Xikong family. The people of the Xikong family were furious. Damn it! This kid still dares to be arrogant in front of us? That's right, we may not be able to deal with you outside, but in the Great Sage Pagoda, who dares to go against us? As long as it wasn't a group attack from so many large sects, the Xikong family had never feared anyone. A mere Lin Wudi was nothing in their eyes. Jinger, fight him. Let him know the power of the Xikong family. An elder of the Xikong family said. Xikong Jing's lips curled up into a smile. Elder, don't worry, I have the same intention. He is definitely not a match for me. Alright, I'll take this opportunity to see how capable this Lin Wudi is. Around them, the powerhouses of the Dark Moon Temple and Dragon Valley also looked unfriendly. They all looked at the two people in the field. Dragon Valley and the others narrowed their eyes. This might be a chance to use the space-time mirror to kill the other party. Thinking of this, they all looked forward to it. Damn it, this guy is really too despicable and shameless. He is like a coward outside, but he dares to show off in front of me here. I really want to slap him to death. The dark red divine dragon snorted. Yen Ryu and the North Demon also frowned. Lin Xian laughed. It's okay, let him do it. An ant will always be an ant. No matter where it goes, it will never be able to turn the tables. Does he really think that he can be bullied just because he is a true dragon? I will prove it to him with my strength. Come on, let me see what you have to be arrogant here. Lin Xian looked forward. Humph. Xikong Jing snorted. He did not say anything, but instead he took a step forward. His body exploded with light that swept across the entire space. At this moment, he was like a ruler, bringing with him a powerful force. Even the surrounding Great Sage Tower became brighter. Seeing the reaction of the Great Sage Tower, the elders of the Xikong family all laughed. In their opinion, how could they lose in their territory? Milky Way fall of the ninth heaven. Xikong Jing roared and the void cracked open. 9 Milky Ways descended, each of them like a silver dragon, bringing with them a powerful aura. There was even a trace of blood-red light on those silver dragons, which was the power of the bloodline. Longshan and the others frowned. The power of the Milky Way fall of the ninth heaven was much stronger than outside. Yes, coupled with the suppression here, that Lin Wudi might really be in trouble. Yu Lingzi sneered. Lin Wudi's power was suppressed by 30%, but if Xikong Jing's bloodline power increased by 30%, then the difference between the two would be 6 levels. No matter how strong that Lin Wudi was, he would not be able to make up for the difference of 6 levels. He would definitely die this time. Oh, his power is stronger than before? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. No wonder the other party dared to be so arrogant. However, it was still not enough. Even if the other party's bloodline increased by 3 levels, so what? It was still not enough. He roared, and the power in his body surged. The 9-yang divine body released billions of rays of light. He waved his arm, and the powerful force turned into countless blue rays of light, forming a huge wave vortex that spun around him. The law of water? Many people frowned. The other party did not use the 10,000 dragons diagram to attack, but the law of water. Wasn't he too careless? Chapter 3390. In the sky, 9 huge cloud dragons rushed over and collided with the black vortex in an instant. There was a loud dragon roar as if it wanted to tear the vortex apart. However, the vortex was extremely terrifying. There was a trace of black aura in the blue light. When the black aura came into contact with the silver dragon shrank rapidly as if it had come into contact with a lightning bolt. It was as if the vortex had swallowed up the Milky Way. In the end, the sea-colored vortex was still spinning, but the 9 silver dragon waterfalls had disappeared, leaving only a trace of aura between heaven and earth. It was not enough. Lin Xian shook his head with a hint of mockery. Damn it, how could it be? The surrounding people were stunned. Xikong Jing's expression also changed. His expression became extremely ugly. He gritted his teeth and said, I don't believe it. I can increase my strength by 30% here. I don't believe you can withstand it. Bright moon above the sea. He roared and activated the power of his bloodline. A bright moon appeared in the vortex of the sea. As soon as the bright moon appeared, it brought with it a powerful force that kept crushing Lin Xian, trying to crush Lin Xian into a bloody mist. Boom. In an instant, the terrifying moon leaped out of the sea and charged straight at Lin Xian, causing a loud rumble to be heard. The front was shrouded in an endless flow of energy. He hit him. Great! Everyone exclaimed. The people of the Xikong clan even smiled. At such a close distance, he was hit by the bright moon above the sea. Even if he did not die, he would be torn into pieces. Let's see how arrogant he can be this time. Is that all you have? Is this the effect of your 30% increase in strength? How pitifully weak. At this moment, a faint voice was heard. Everyone saw a huge golden hand tearing apart all the energy. Lin Xian's body merely swayed a little from the intense collision before he regained his composure. This scene caused everyone to scream like they had gone crazy. This is impossible. Xikong Jing was flustered and could not believe it. If such a scene had occurred outside, he would have to admit that his strength was indeed inferior to the other parties. But now they were in the Great Sage Pagoda. He had a 30% bloodline bonus, and his opponent's strength was also suppressed by 30%. There was a difference of 6 levels of strength between the two of them. Could it be that he couldn't defeat the other party? This was absolutely impossible. Had the other party already surpassed him by so much? He didn't dare accept it. The others were stupefied as well. The great sex experts and elders sucked in cold breaths of air. How could it be like this? They had thought of countless possibilities before, but they had never thought of such a possibility. This was simply too unbelievable. No wonder their geniuses, Dragon Mountain and Huang Batian, didn't dare to say anything. Apparently, they really had been defeated by this Lin Wudi. Furthermore, it should be a crushing defeat. Right at this moment, Lin Xian spoke. Is this the power of your augmentation? How pitifully weak. Do you intend to use such a trump card against me? No. Damn it. I don't believe it. Xikong Jing roared like a madman. The wind and clouds shook the 9 heavens. He waved his hands, and suddenly, the wind and clouds in the void changed as if they were going to sweep through the 9 heavens. This force was so terrifying that it could split the sky and the earth. Go to hell. The terrifying wind and clouds shook the 9 heavens, and completely shrouded Lin Xian. This was a divine power that was even more terrifying than the previous 2 heaven and earth phenomenons. Humph! Lin Xian snorted and directly used his fist to transform into a Kuan Peng. The Kuan Peng was incomparably majestic. One side was as black as ink, while the other side was as golden as light. It soared into the 9 heavens and directly tore the wind and clouds into pieces. Bang! 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 Under the fierce bombardment, Xikong Jing also took 3 steps back. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling uncontrollably. An ant will always be an ant. Even if they were in another place, they still wouldn't be able to shake a giant dragon. I'll show you how big the gap between us is. Lin Xian took a step forward and looked down at the mountains. Endless mountains appeared around him like a bottomless abyss. Lin Xian was like a god on top of the mountain, looking down at the people below. Xikong Jing was shrouded by this mysterious force. Looking at the heaven and earth phenomenons, he couldn't help but tremble. With a plop, he finally couldn't help but kneel on the ground. What? Xikong Jing is kneeling? The surrounding people went crazy. They would believe it if Xikong Jing was defeated. But kneeling? How could that be? Xikong Jing was a peerless genius, and he had his own pride. Even if he died, he wouldn't kneel. However, it was too strange for him to kneel on the ground. The people of Xikong Jing's family were even more shocked. A few of them roared, "Damn it, Jinger, what are you doing? Why are you making him kneel? Stand up." 2 of them quickly walked forward, wanting to take Xikong Jing away. However, as soon as they came forward, They were shrouded by this strange heaven and earth phenomenons. In the next moment, they felt the sky and earth spinning. The force made them float up and down. Such a voice kept ringing in his ears. Damn it, this force. They were too shocked. Now they finally knew why Sekongjing was kneeling on the ground. This kind of floating force was simply irresistible. Bang! Bang! The two of them also unconsciously knelt on the ground and trembled. This scene was like a sudden clap of thunder that stunned the surrounding people. The members of the Sekong clan were even more shocked. Even their other two powerhouses had knelt down? What kind of spell was this? It was too strange. This brat is too strange. I suggest that we work together and take him down. An elder of the Sekong family coldly shouted. The surrounding people also nodded. The people of the Vermilion Bird Palace were the first to express their opinion. They had long wanted to make a move. They had a strong hatred for Lin Xian. After all, Lin Xian was a member of the Vermilion Bird Palace. As for Lin Xian, he had slapped the Vermilion Bird Palace hard in the face back on planet Suzaku. Now that they had a chance to hit Lin Xian while he was down, they naturally had to do their part. After receiving the support of the Vermilion Bird Palace, the people of the Sekong family calmed down a bit. It looked like they really had to capture this brat. I also want to know what kind of secret this brat has. The powerhouses of the Dragon Valley, Eight Wind Palace, and Dark Moon Temple all walked over. At this moment, the atmosphere was extremely tense. Do you want to fight? Then come. Lin Xian laughed loudly. His aura became even more violent. It was as if the Celestial Emperor had descended. We won't bully you. Each sect will only send one person. If you can survive, then consider yourself lucky. The person from the Vermilion Bird Palace sneered. Hearing this, the dark red dragon was enraged. Bah, you bunch of shameless people. You still say you're not bullying? You've all lived for thousands of years, right? In total, you're almost 7,000 to 8,000 years old. You're almost 10,000 years old. You still have the nerve to attack a young junior? Also, how many of you are there? The 5 of you are working together, and you still say you're not bullying? Since you're already so shameless, then admit it. The North Demon also let out a cold snort. His expression was filled with disdain. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such shameless people. Chapter 3391. Lin Xian's words were like a slap to the faces of the 5 strong cultivators. What could they do? They were so shameless. Die, little kid. The 5 of them were furious. Since they had decided to act shamelessly, they didn't need to worry about anything anymore. That expert from the 8 Desolation Hall raised his hand and took out an ancient mirror. That ancient mirror was incomparably simple and bronze in color. It was extremely terrifying. It was a terrifying weapon in the Bahuang province. The 8 Desolation mirror carried a terrifying desolation aura. As it flowed, the surrounding void shattered continuously. Boom. Lin Xian didn't say anything. He raised his fist and punched. The golden fist was like a sun as it collided with the lights from the Bahuang province. An earth-shattering sound could be heard. Terrifying energies swept in all directions. At that moment, Lin Xian heard a terrifying voice behind him. Dark clouds covered the city. It was the strong cultivator from the Sekong clan. A dark cloud appeared above his head, and it contained a strange qi. It was also the strength of the earth and sky. Lin Xian smiled coldly. According to the legends, the Sekong clan practiced the qi of the earth and sky. Surprisingly, the Sekong clan practiced the qi of the earth and sky. What a disgrace to the Sekong clan. Today I'll help the Sekong clan get rid of you. As he spoke, Lin Xian struck out with his palm, which transformed into a piercingly cold sword aura. With an insufferably arrogant aura, it slashed towards the black cloud. Boom. An earth-shattering sound spread in the air as the dark cloud was cut in half. However, Lin Xian's sword qi was also swallowed. What a strong physique. But you should try my strength. A loud shout rang out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Then a fist that resembled a dragon head flew towards Lin Xian. Without a doubt, a strong cultivator from the Dragon Valley had to have such a strong body. You think I'm afraid of you? Lin Xian clapped his hands together and blasted out another attack. This time, there wasn't any special light. It was the power of his body being used to the extreme. Boom boom boom. A deep voice rang out, like a muffled thunder exploding on the ground. Then the two figures retreated. Lin Xian swung his arms, and the aura on his body grew even stronger. On the other side, the powerful beings of the Dragon Valley found it hard to believe. His arms were trembling and he couldn't lift them. He was very strong and a peerless genius, but a genius who survived was a true genius. If he died, he would be nothing. At this moment, a shadow silently appeared behind Lin Xian. Like a grim reaper, the dagger in his hand slashed across the back of Lin Xian's neck. The Dark Moon Temple would definitely kill. Lin Xian also felt a chill run down his spine. He had to admit that this expert from the Dark Moon Palace was very good at assassination. However, it was still impossible to kill him. With a cold snort, Lin Xian did not even turn his head around. Incomparable sword aura burst out from his body, densely packed together. In particular, a golden light rushed out from the back of his head. It was piercingly cold and roared like a giant dragon. With a boom, the dagger was sent flying. The Dark Moon Temple expert was also pierced by the sword chi. Blood splattered everywhere. In the blink of an eye, the experts of the 4 great sects and families had all made their moves. However, they were unable to do anything to the other party. Instead, some of them were even injured. This scene caused the expert from the Vermilion Bird Palace to be dumbfounded. He didn't even have time to attack when he saw this frightening scene. Now it's your turn. Lin Xian took the initiative to attack. Using the Kuan-Peng movement technique to its limit, he instantly attacked the Vermilion Bird Palace expert. The Vermilion Bird Palace expert trembled all over, and a sense of fear enveloped his heart. However, he soon gritted his teeth and roared. Divine Red Blood Palm. His palm turned red. It was the blood of the Vermilion Bird. The blood was incomparably terrifying. When he sent out his palm, it turned into a small blood-colored world that directly engulfed Lin Xian. This was also a powerful ability. The Divine Red Blood Palm could forcibly refine a person's chi and blood. It could be said to be incomparably vicious. Let's see how you block it, kid. The Vermilion Bird Palace expert sneered. Even a saint would be injured when he sent out his palm. Those below the saint level would definitely be turned into a bloody mist in an instant, unable to escape. Roar! The crimson world filled the air. However, a terrifying dragon's roar could be heard from within. Immediately, the entire blood-colored world shook violently. Many terrifying cracks appeared on it. Finally, it split open with a boom. Lin Xian charged over with a sword light in his hand. With one strike, he shattered the other party's small blood-colored world. Not only that, the other party's palms were also split in half. Ah! The expert from the Vermilion Bird Palace screamed and retreated, his face pale. He stared straight ahead. How was this possible? The other party broke his Divine Red Blood Palm so easily? In the next moment, when he saw the weapon in the other party's hand, he was stunned. The Great Spear of Destruction. He finally screamed. The 5 of you are only SOSO. You want to kill me? You're too naive. Damn it, all of you, attack and kill him. The Vermilion Bird Palace expert roared madly. Beside him, 2 more figures stepped forward. Their auras were no weaker than the former's. Not only Vermilion Bird Palace, but the Dragon Valley Dark Moon Palace, 8 Wind Palace, and Seekong Clan also stepped forward. This time, there were more than a dozen experts. A group battle? The dark red dragon roared and its body turned into a huge dragon coiled in the void. The North Demon activated the body of 10,000 demons. The sky-piercing divine tree appeared behind him. On the other side, Yanruya's eyes also burst with a cold light. Kill! Someone roared, and the battle instantly erupted. More than a dozen experts fought with Lin Xian, and the other 3. The commotion was extremely terrifying. In fact, there were even saints who were secretly making their moves. Obviously, their main goal was to capture Lin Xian. This was because Lin Xian had the most treasures on him. The 2 great inheritances made the saints jealous. Terrifying energy fluctuations spread down from the 3rd floor. Fortunately, this was the Great Sage Pagoda. Everything was the ruins of the Great Sage. Therefore, even if these people attacked with all their strength, they would not damage this place at all. However, the space inside the Great Sage Pagoda was torn apart. On the second floor, and even the people on the first floor, they could feel the terrifying fluctuations coming from above. That fluctuation made their scalps almost split open. It was so terrifying. They were now somewhat glad that they did not go up. Otherwise, the energy shockwave would be able to destroy them. Lin Xian was very powerful. With the great spear of destruction in his hand, he swept in all directions. Any divine powers that came close were directly shattered by him. However, at this moment, a cold law directly hit his arm, causing his arm to tremble. The great spear of destruction almost flew out of his hand. Damn it, a saint had attacked, and he had attacked secretly. Lin Xian swept his gaze in all directions, and looked at the remaining saints in the distance. Those saints had a cold smile in their eyes. Chapter 3392. The dark red divine dragon, and the other two also roared angrily. Obviously, they had also been ambushed by the saints. If it weren't for the great sage's painting that they had previously cultivated and learned these heaven and earth phenomenons, they would have been seriously injured by now. A group attack? Fine, I'll make you pay a painful price today. Lin Xian's eyes emitted an extremely cold light. He was really angry, so he didn't hold back at all. He used the Kuan Peng movement technique, and dodged more than a dozen attacks in an instant. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Xikong Jing with a murderous look in his eyes. You've provoked me time and time again, and you even sent so many experts from your family to kill me. You deserve to die. Lin Xian waved the spear of destruction in his hand. Xikong Jing screamed like a madman, and his face was extremely pale. To be honest, he had already walked out of the heaven and earth phenomenon, and regained his composure. At this moment, he saw more than a dozen people attacking him, including a saint. They knew that no matter how powerful Lin Wudi was, he was doomed. This made him calm down a lot, and he even sneered. He still didn't expect Lin Wudi to be so powerful. His movement technique was so strange that he actually dodged all the attacks and arrived in front of him. Damn it, how dare you attack Jing? Someone roared and pounced forward. It was a powerhouse from the Xikong family. However, he was kicked away by Lin Xian and blood splattered everywhere. Run. That was Xikong Jing's only thought. He didn't dare to fight with Lin Xian at all now, because Lin Xian's aura was too strong. Therefore, he turned into a stream of light, tore through the void, and was about to escape. However, how could he be faster than Lin Xian? The spear of destruction slid and directly pierced through the void. It blasted Xikong Jing out. Then it pierced through Xikong Jing's heart. Ah! A miserable cry was heard, and blood flowed, dyeing the spear of destruction red. Damn it, put it in or I'll tear you into pieces. Kill your entire family. The people from the Xikong family roared and pounced forward one after another. However, Lin Xian sneered and didn't fight them head-on. He used the Kuan Peng movement technique, and swam among these Abijnas, and flew quickly to the other side. In an instant he arrived in front of Longshan. Not good. Longshan was scared out of his wits. He turned and ran. Damn it, he didn't dare to fight with Lin Zuanshan. How dare you? The powerhouses of the Dragon Valley were also stunned. They did not expect the other party to be so powerful after piercing through Xikong Jing. How dare he try to kill a genius of the Dragon Valley? If you dare to touch him, I'll tear you to shreds. His soul. However, this kind of threat was completely useless. Lin Xian attacked again and pierced through Longshan's heart. Longshan flew into the air and screamed miserably. Lin Xian dodged the dragon shadows that filled the sky and turned around again. Not good, quickly protect our prodigies. The remaining experts from the 8 Desolation Palace and the Dark Moon Divine Hall also reacted. They retreated one after another, no longer surrounding Lin Xian. There was nothing they could do about it. They could tell that Lin Xian was specifically targeting their top geniuses. Despicable, shameless. They roared madly. Fight me head-on if you have the ability. Lin Xian laughed loudly. I'm despicable? I'm shameless? How dare you say that? You're thousands of years old, and a dozen of you are attacking me, a young junior. Now it's my turn to be despicable? Don't you like to suppress others with your strength? I'll let your juniors suffer this kind of fear." With that, Lin Xian charged toward the people from the Dark Moon Palace. These powerhouses moved out one after another. They protected Yu Lingzi as they retreated while assassinating Lin Xian. Every move was aimed at a vital point. All mountains looked small. Lin Xian unleashed the illusion of mountains, and his aura rose infinitely. This kind of phenomenon caused the few people near him to stiffen and kneel in midair. Lin Xian punched out again, and the 10,000 dragons picture sent the remaining people flying. There was no one around Lin Xian anymore. Yu Lingzi's face was extremely pale. "Stop, I didn't attack you. You can't." Before he could finish, he was also pierced through. His heart was split open, and his body was picked up by the Great Spear of Destruction. Now Lin Xian's body was stained with the blood of his enemies. The Great Spear of Destruction in his hand flickered with a bright red light. There were 3 figures on it. They were 3 peerless prodigies. They screamed miserably, but they didn't die. That was because Lin Xian didn't kill them. Instead, he carried the bodies of the 3 people and charged toward the 4th prodigy. 8 Desolate Palace, Huang Batian. The people of the 8 Desolate Palace blocked frantically, but it was useless. Huang Ba was also pierced through by the spear. Finally, a prodigy of the Vermilion Bird Palace was also pierced through. Lin Xian pierced through 5 people with the Great Spear of Destruction in his hand. He stood in the void like a stick of candied hawthorn. Blood continued to drip, dyeing the surrounding void red. This scene was simply too shocking. "Damn brat, let go of our people. You're dead meat. I'll never let you leave alive." The surrounding sects and families all surrounded him with ferocious expressions. Lin Xian stood there like a god fiend. His gaze swept in all directions. "You won't let me go? All right, let's see if I can let your people go." His palm shook, and an extremely cold sword intent was transmitted from the Great Spear of Destruction. In an instant, the 5 of them were all shattered. Even their souls were instantly destroyed. No, damn it. The surrounding powerhouses have all gone crazy. They're dead. Sikongjing, Huang Batian, Longshan, and Yu Lingzi were all top prodigies. They were all people who could become sages and shine on the path of the great emperor in the future. But now they were all killed together. Their hearts were bleeding. Kill him and tear him into pieces. Otherwise, it would be difficult to relieve the hatred in their hearts. These people attacked crazily. Lin Xian directly activated the 10,000 dragons picture and swept in all directions. At the same time, he activated the hidden immortal pagoda and kept attacking. The battle was very tragic. In the end, even the sages could not help but make a move. Lin Xian was directly sent flying. The powerhouses of the Sikong family were also sent flying with him. They directly crashed into the wall of the Great Sage Pagoda in the distance. With a boom, the entire Great Sage Pagoda shook. "Kid, are you all right?" The dark red divine dragon and the others were worried. The current situation was too chaotic. "I'm fine." Lin Xian stood up. Golden blood flowed from his body, but he did not care. However, at this moment, he was surprised. Is the seal broken? He crashed into the wall and actually broke a seal, revealing a bottle of pills. The Great Sage pills. And the quality should be very good. Lin Xian instantly grabbed it. "Damn it, let go." Beside him, the eyes of the 2 powerhouses of the Sikong family instantly turned red. Chapter 3393. Damn you, leave the elixir behind. The powerhouses of the Sikong clan roared furiously. His words attracted the attention of the surrounding people, and countless pairs of eyes looked over. What's going on? Did someone get the elixir? They turned around and stared at Lin Wudi and the elders of the Sikong clan. He was the one who broke the seal and got a bottle of the Great Sage's elixir. The 2 elders of the Sikong clan pointed at Lin Xian and gritted their teeth. The Great Sage's elixir. The surrounding people all stopped in their tracks and turned their heads to look in that direction. In the next moment, they saw that the seal had indeed been broken. The elixir inside had disappeared. Instantly, these people looked at Lin Xian again. "Kid, hand over the elixir." "Damn you, kid. You dared to kill our sex genius powerhouse. Today, I'll tear you into pieces." They hadn't experienced the pain of their genius being killed just now, but now, their eyes turned red again. It's this kid again. Oh no! The dark red divine dragon and the other's hearts suddenly shrank. The previous incident hadn't ended yet, and now there was a new one. This time, it would probably be hard to let it go. Lin Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. Oh, you want to snatch the elixir, right? He took out the elixir bottle and threw it forward. It was the people of the Seikong clan. The people of the Seikong clan thought that the other party was going to throw some hidden weapon, but when they saw that it was a bottle of elixir, they subconsciously caught it. Lin Xian said, "The great sage's elixir has already been given to the Seikong clan, so it's considered returning it to its rightful owner, so don't look for me anymore." As he spoke, he retreated backward. The surrounding people's gazes all shifted away from him and landed on the two powerhouses of the Seikong clan. The people of the Seikong clan were stunned. The surrounding powerhouses of the other clans gathered together. They all gathered together. Did they get what they wanted? That brat was indeed more sensible than others. However, even if he handed over the elixir, they wouldn't let him go. Quick, take a look. What elixir is that? The elders of the Seikong clan who rushed over asked. The two of them opened the elixir, and their expressions changed instantly. Damn it, we've been cheated. It's just an ordinary elixir. Their faces instantly became incomparably dark as they stared straight ahead. Kid, how dare you swap it? Hurry and hand over the real great sage's elixir. Angry roars could be heard. Lin Xian laughed coldly. The Seikong clan was so arrogant. They actually dared to say that he had switched them? Of the elixirs of the elixir bottle. Do you dare to say that it wasn't taken out from the seal? You're spouting nonsense. You must have swapped it out just now. The members of the Seikong family shouted angrily. Ask Lin of Saif the of clans of the eyes of the surrounding people of. On the other hand, the Seikong clan is now protected by countless powerhouses. It's probably very easy for you to do something secretly. Don't forget that this is your own great sage pagoda. You're the master of this place. Now you're wrongly accusing me, a young junior. Are you shameless? At first, everyone was very suspicious of Lin Xian. However, when they heard those words, they all stared at the Seikong clan again. Yes, Lin Xian was definitely strong in terms of combat. However, when it came to other things, Lin Xian couldn't do it. Of course, the Seikong clan was the most familiar with this place. This was because previously, whether it was breaking the array or crossing the Milky Way, the Seikong clan had done it very easily. They could do it easily with their own blood. Now that they had obtained the great sage's elixir, it was very easy for them to secretly exchange it for the elixir. Therefore, everyone else was stunned. The Seikong clan looked unfriendly. You people from the Seikong clan had better cooperate obediently. Since you have a way to open the seal, you have a way to open the other seals as well. Let's quickly cooperate and share the treasures together. Otherwise, don't blame us for taking action. The powerhouses of the Vermilion Bird Palace, Eight Wind Palace, and Dragon Valley all spoke coldly. The surrounding sages were also glaring at them. Damn it, you've been deceived. The powerhouses of the Seikong clan were so angry that they vomited blood. They were trembling with anger. Why didn't anyone believe them? He pointed at Lin Xian in the distance and said, "It's him. It's this kid who did it. It has nothing to do with us." Oh, is that so? Then do you dare to let these powerhouses search your storage ring? Lin Xian said coldly. As soon as he said that, the faces of the Seikong clan changed again. The surrounding powerhouses' eyes lit up. Brother Seikong, why don't you let us check it out? Otherwise, I'm afraid he'll really wrongly accuse you. Yes, even if you have a clear conscience, let us check it out. Or rather, we can cooperate to seize the other seals. Damn it, what are you doing? Let's catch that kid together. He's our common enemy. Why are you listening to him? Don't you want revenge? Of course we have to take revenge. Since he dared to kill our prodigies, he'll definitely die. However, he won't be able to escape anytime soon in the Great Sage Pagoda, so we'll let him live for a while longer. The most important thing now was to seize the treasures and open the seals. Many powerhouses' eyes flashed with a piercing cold light. Indeed, their prodigies were already dead. Even if they killed Lin Xian, their prodigies couldn't be resurrected. In that case, their attention would still be on them. They would obtain the treasures and increase their strength. When the time came, they would kill Lin Xian. This way, they would be able to take revenge, and they wouldn't be left behind. After all, it was every man for himself. I advise you to cooperate obediently. Yes, otherwise it won't look good for anyone. A few powerhouses said. The Sikong family members were so angry that they vomited blood. They pointed at Lin Xian, trembling all over. Damn kid, how dare you trick me? Trick you? Lin Xian sneered. What did they do before? The other party had teamed up with the powerhouses of several large families and sects to besiege him. Now he was going to let these people have a taste of being besieged. Isn't the Sikong family powerful? Aren't you high and mighty? Didn't you always think that the Great Sage Pagoda is your territory? All right, I'll let you have a taste of what it feels like to be besieged by the Vermilion Bird Palace and other top sects. The Sikong family members naturally knew that they couldn't become enemies with sects like the Dragon Valley. However, they wouldn't be willing to let the other party search them. Because just now, they had indeed obtained many good things on the first level with their bloodline. Moreover, they had also obtained many benefits before entering the Great Sage Pagoda. How could they let these people search them now? At this moment, Lin Xian spoke again. I'm afraid you still don't know that on the first level, even before coming out of the Great Sage Pagoda, the Sikong family had already conquered many secret underwater caves. Chapter 3394. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the Sikong family members changed. Upon seeing this scene, the surrounding people from the Dragon Valley frowned. It seemed that they had indeed obtained something good. They cooperated obediently and opened all the remaining seals. They were thoroughly enraged. They had been here for so long but had not obtained many treasures. On the other hand, it seemed that the Sikong family had obtained a great harvest. How could they feel at ease in this way? Damn it, how was this possible? The Sikong family members were shocked. Could it be that this kid had seen it before? But they realized that someone had peeked at it before. The dark red divine dragon and the others also flew to Lin Xian's side and asked softly, Kid, what's going on? Lin Xian replied telepathically. He had guessed that the Sikong family knew that the Great Sage Pagoda was here. Moreover, it was said that every time the Great Sage Pagoda opened the void ocean, countless powerhouses would be sent in. Thus, they must be the most familiar with the situation in the void ocean. Therefore, the probability of them obtaining the treasures was also the highest. Su Chen's guess was right. The Sikong family had indeed obtained many treasures before, so they would not let the Great Sage Pagoda investigate now. At this moment, a powerhouse from the Sikong family said, Damn it, this kid is trying to trick us. He's trying to sow discord between us. He wants to reap the benefits without doing anything. That's right, I'm indeed trying to sow discord. Besides, I lied before. The Sikong family did not obtain anything. Everyone, please don't make things difficult for the Sikong family. Lin Xian shrugged. As soon as he said that, the surrounding powerhouses' faces darkened. How was this possible? When they saw the changes in the faces of the space-time family members, they knew that something was wrong. Thus, these people's expressions turned cold, and their auras became stronger. No matter what happened before, they would work together to break the remaining seals and split the treasures. Otherwise, don't blame them for being rude. Damn it, don't go too far. This is our Great Sage Pagoda. Humph, so what if it's your Great Sage Pagoda? If you're not convinced, then let's fight. The powerhouses of the Dragon Valley had the most explosive temper and attacked directly. With a boom, the battle erupted. The Sikong family members were furious. Did they think they were afraid of them? They unleashed all types of heaven and earth irregular scenes to contend against the bodies of the dragons. Heaven-shocking collisions rang out, and terrifying power swept out in all directions. Since that's the case, I won't hold back. The Eight-Wind Palace, the Dark Moon Palace, the Vermilion Bird Palace, and the surrounding sages had all made their moves. For a time, The Seacone clan received an extremely severe blow. Although these people's strength had been suppressed by 30%, and they had the bonus of their bloodline, there were simply too many experts around. For a time, they were beaten back repeatedly and vomited blood. Damn it, let's fight. The members of the Seacone clan roared madly, while Lin Xian and the others retreated into the distance. Looking at this scene, they sneered repeatedly. Hee, the Seacone clan would probably vomit blood from anger this time. Serves them right. Who told them to join hands to deal with us earlier? Now let them have a taste of being beaten up by a crowd. Since the battle had started, it probably wouldn't stop for a while. Therefore, Lin Xian didn't pay attention to it and let these people fight each other. He still had his own goals. He raised his head and looked at the statue of the great sage at the top. Next, he would seize the statue of the great sage. Thinking of this, Lin Xian retracted his aura. His figure flashed, and he directly rushed to the top. The dark red divine dragon and the others also quickly followed. Soon they left the battle area below and came to the top. Here, the statue of the great sage seemed to have suppressed everything. There weren't any terrifying energy fluctuations in the surroundings. When the few of them arrived here, their hearts felt heavy. They finally arrived near the statue and looked at it carefully. This statue wasn't very big. It looked like it was carved in the likeness of a real person. Although they didn't know who carved it, the aura made everyone know that it wasn't simple. The statue was in the shape of a man. He was burly, had a square face, and his hair hung down to his shoulders. At a glance, he looked like an unparalleled god of war. Was this the great sage of the Seacone clan? Lin Xian and the others were shocked. Looking at the other party's disdainful appearance, he indeed cultivated the righteous chi of heaven and earth. Should I take this thing? Lin Xian stretched out his palm and grabbed in front of him. Soon, he enveloped the statue of the great sage with light. However, he didn't succeed. This was because the statue of the great sage was abnormally heavy. No matter how much power he exerted, he couldn't move it at all. Lin Xian furrowed his brows while the people around him sucked in a breath of cold air. This statue of the great sage was really too mysterious. At this moment, they heard a scream coming from below. It was the people of the Seacone clan. They were covered in blood. Many of them were seriously injured. Some of them even turned into human form from the blood mist. Their expressions were extremely ugly. The battle just now had caused them to suffer heavy losses. Therefore, an elder said, "All right, let's stop fighting," and prepared to hand over some of the treasures. As he said that, he took off his storage ring and threw out all the things inside. In an instant, many treasures appeared. Pills, weapons, spirit herbs, and crystals appeared in the surroundings. Those people's eyes instantly turned red. The dark red divine dragon also exclaimed in surprise. His eyes were burning. Damn it, the people of the Seacone clan really had some good stuff. Lin Xian sneered. Idiot. Yin Ruyu also sighed. Yes, if they didn't take out the treasures, there would be no evidence. Perhaps the fight would end in the end. However, these people were probably in a killing frenzy now. Indeed, the surrounding powerhouses instantly divided up the treasures. However, they didn't leave. Instead, their eyes were red. They stared at the people of the Seacone clan. An elder actually had so many things in a storage ring. You have so many storage rings here. Hurry up and hand them all over. They were really too greedy. Damn it, don't push your luck. The people of the Seacone clan were also angry. They originally thought that they would take a step back. If they took out a portion of the treasures and gave them away, these people would stop. However, they didn't expect these people to be so greedy. No matter how strong these people were, even if they were sages, they were still humans. Although their strength was beyond heaven and earth, humans were greedy creatures. Now that they had tasted the sweetness, how could they stop? As expected, the people of the Dragon Valley and Eight Wind Hall attacked even more fiercely. Every move was fatal. They wanted to kill the people of the Seacone clan and seize all the treasures of the Seacone clan. As expected, the battle that followed was even more terrifying. The people of the Seacone clan were injured even more severely. They were about to be wiped out. At this moment, the people of the Seacone clan roared madly. Damn it, you've gone too far. Since you want to kill, Don't blame me for being merciless. At most, we'll all die together." After saying that, he waved his hand and the blood of countless powerhouses flew out and merged into the surrounding great sage pagoda. Many of them knelt down respectfully and shouted loudly, "Please show your spirit and destroy the strong enemy." Chapter 3395. Around them, the walls of the Grand Sacred Tower suddenly lit up after absorbing the blood of the powerhouses from the Seacone clan. They formed a terrifying blood-red pattern. Then they turned into lightning and charged over. Boom! The blood-red lightning danced in the air and split open. Then the experts of the Vermilion Bird Palace and the Eight-Wind Palace screamed. They were directly split open, and countless lightning cracks appeared on their bodies. The others, such as those from the Dragon Valley and the Dark Moon Temple, felt their scalps go numb. That was because the blood-red lightning around them kept rushing over, as if it had turned into a blood-red sea of lightning. It was extremely terrifying. The Grand Ancestor had appeared. Our great sage had appeared. The Seacone family members were covered in blood. Their faces were pale, and many of them had already fallen to the ground, twitching. However, when they saw this scene, they were extremely excited. Their hearts were burning with passion. The great sage had finally appeared to save them. Damn it, how could this be? Could it be that the great sage wasn't completely dead? The expressions of the surrounding experts all changed. A few of the sages even shouted coldly and split open the terrifying lightning. Then they charged forward. At the same time, the statue of the great sage above them moved. An extremely terrifying aura surged down. It was a majestic aura that formed a huge seal that descended from the sky. With a boom, two sages were directly sent flying. The two sages screamed as their bodies were split in half. They hurriedly dragged their bodies and fled into the distance. Their eyes were filled with fear. What was that? There was actually something here that could threaten them. The others also looked up. They saw that there was a statue of the great sage above them. It stood there, suppressing everything. Moreover, Lin Xian and the others were standing near the statue of the great sage. Damn it, how did that kid go there? Could it be that the attack just now was from him? No, that was a majestic aura. Was it from the Seacone family? Which statue did it come from? Could it be that the brat was there for the statue of the great sage? At the thought of this, many people's eyes turned red. If they could obtain the statue of the great sage, they would be able to comprehend the secrets within. Perhaps he might be able to obtain the inheritance of the great sage. All of a sudden, many people rushed over. But at this moment, the great sage statue was imposing as well. The righteous chi kept gushing out in all directions, hitting the people who wanted to get close, causing them to scream miserably. Lin Xian and the others felt their hearts beating wildly. The great sage statue was already so terrifying just by releasing some of its aura. If he really went all out, the power would be unimaginable. Even a statue was so powerful? How terrifying would the real great sage be? Everyone exclaimed in surprise. At the same time, they also felt a sense of relief. This was because they were currently floating beside the statue of the great sage. It could be said that they were standing side by side with the statue and not beneath the feet of the great sage. Therefore, he was not attacked by the righteous spirit. However, their hearts were still beating wildly. Who knew if the great sage statue would suddenly attack them? The dark red dragon frowned. Kid, hurry up and think of a way to get that thing away. Otherwise, more and more people would be targeting it. By then, it would be troublesome to make a move. Lin Xian said. Of course I know. But this thing is too strange. I can't even lift it. His face was pale. With the power of his divine body, what could he not lift? But the great sage statue did not move at all. Buzz. The sages below rushed over again, trying to get close to the great sage statue. Because to them, the great sage statue must be hiding the inheritance of the great sage. Therefore their eyes were red. Their bodies were covered in blood, and some of them were even about to activate their blood vessels. Seeing this, Lin Xian was also extremely anxious. But at this moment, the great dragon sword spirit suddenly flew out and pierced towards the great sage statue. This scene was truly too sudden. It was so sudden that even Lin Xian was shocked. The dark red dragon, Yin Ruyu, And the others screamed. What's going on? Did Lin Xian make a move? They turned around and saw Lin Xian's shocked face. In the blink of an eye, the great dragon sword soul collided with the great sage statue and released a shocking amount of energy. A terrifying sword ripple swept out in all directions as the righteous chi of the heavens and earth surged wildly. A crack appeared on the great sage statue and spread in all directions. Lin Xian gasped. The great sage statue is broken? What's going on? At the side, the dark red dragon screamed. Kid! What the hell are you doing? Lin Xian said. I didn't make a move. The great dragon sword spirit took the initiative to attack. What? When he said that, Yan Ruyu and the others were stunned. The dark red dragon was even more stunned. He had never encountered such a situation before. That's true. Lin Xian was at a loss. But soon his eyelids twitched and golden runes appeared in his eyes. He stared at the great sage statue. No, there's something inside the great sage statue. Look! Lin Xian exclaimed. The hearts of the dark red divine dragon. And the other two pounded wildly as well. They pushed their powers to the limit to defend themselves against that terrifying and overwhelming aura. In the next moment, they saw the statue of the great sage crack open, and another figure appeared from within. It was also a man with a dignified face. His black hair fell to his shoulders, and he had a terrifying aura. He looked exactly like the statue. What's going on? Why is there another person inside the statue? Is it another statue? Or is it the corpse of the great sage? At the thought of this, their hearts beat wildly. In the next moment, their expressions changed. Because they found that the eyes of the figure inside the statue of the great god were shining. One was as black as ink, and the other was as red as blood. What kind of eyes are those? The color of the eyes is really strange. Among them, the crimson and hemolytic eyeballs moved. Everyone was scared out of their wits, and they frantically retreated. It moved. The eyes of the statue that seems to be the corpse of the great sage actually moved. Could it be that he's not dead? He's alive. At the thought of this, their scalps were about to split open. A living great sage. Oh heavens, something shocking is about to happen. Retreat quickly. Lin Xian roared and retreated quickly. However, it was already too late. That blood-red eyeball turned, and immediately, a frightening aura was emitted from its body. It swept in all directions. The entire Great Sage Tower shook violently. This scene stunned the powerhouses of the Fane of Darkness and the Dragon Valley below. Only the people of the Sikong family were stunned at first, then they were ecstatic. Patriarch, it's the Patriarch. The Patriarch's remnant soul is still here. Welcome, Patriarch. Chapter 3396. Damn it, what's going on? How did this happen? Many experts were stupefied. Many of them looked up, their bodies trembling. The great sage statue had come back to life. As soon as that was said, many people gasped. Some of them shook their heads. Impossible, how can a statue come back to life? However, they saw that some of the saints were retreating in fear. Indeed, a few sages originally wanted to snatch the great sage statue because they thought that the great sage statue contained the legacy of the great sage. But now, they were pushed out by an extremely terrifying force. They even saw the eyes of the great sage statue move. This made their hair stand on end. Buzz. The great sage tower shook even more violently. The red light in the eyes of the great sage statue suddenly shone brightly, enveloping the 9 heavens and 10 lands. In the next moment, everyone inside was enveloped. Oh no, I'm going crazy to resist. Boom. They were knocked into the void and disappeared. Yen Ruyu and the others also exclaimed and disappeared. The dragon sword soul in front of Lin Xian roared and cut off the red light. It completely enveloped Lin Xian. In the next moment, Lin Xian frowned, and his face was incomparably gloomy because he found that except for him, everyone in the great sage tower had disappeared. Were they all killed? His heart suddenly jumped, but soon he shook his head. Impossible, Yen Ruyu's trump card is not inferior to my dragon sword soul. So they shouldn't have been killed. If they suddenly disappeared, it's very likely that they were teleported away. Thinking of this, his face was gloomy. Not only the people on the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, and even the first floor were all enveloped by a red light, and then disappeared. Outside, those who had not entered in time also saw the great sage tower shake violently. What's going on? What happened inside? They were extremely shocked. Could it be that there's a shocking battle inside? Even the great sage tower was trembling? Before they had time to think, the great sage pagoda shook violently, causing the 9 heavens and 10 earths to crumble. In the next moment, all the foreign experts were teleported out of the void sea. Outside the void ocean, countless experts were waiting there. They were all people from the various large clans who were prepared to welcome them. At this moment, the faces of these people from the sects were relaxed. Many people sat on spirit boats or demon beasts, sipping tea and discussing the Tao. I wonder how these little fellows are doing inside? A white-haired old man said with flickering eyes. His head was extremely long, directly hanging down to his feet. It was incomparably snow-white, carrying a wave of strange aura. This was a grand elder of the Sikong family. There was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Hopefully, this time, they would be able to find the whereabouts of the great sage. Don't worry, elder, we're well prepared this time. Many experts are going in. And this time, even Sikong Jing, who had a pure bloodline, had gone in. There would definitely be no problem. The other members of the Sikong family also said with a smile. Hearing this, the grand elder nodded. He picked up the spirit tea beside him and slowly tasted it. On the other side, the experts of the large clans of the Dragon Valley were also chatting and laughing. They were very confident in their lineup and the strength of their experts. They believed that there would be no accidents. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a violent trembling sound was heard. The void ocean in front of them suddenly churned, crashing in all directions. A terrifying force spread across the universe. What's going on? What's happening? The experts of the large clans all stopped talking and stood up one by one. The people of the Sikong family frowned. Could the changes in the void ocean have something to do with the great sage that they were looking for? Before they could figure it out, countless cracks appeared in the void ocean. Then figures flew out of the cracks. They're out. Many people were stunned when they saw those figures. They realized that they were all people of the Sikong family. These people had already come out. But it shouldn't be. They came out earlier than they had expected. Sure enough, these people were all adventurers from the void ocean. After flying out, they were dizzy and had sunken eyes. Then they regained their strength. They looked around vigilantly. However, when they saw the elders of their respective clans, they were all stunned. Damn it, what's going on? Why did I come out? They were all confused. The elders were even more confused. They hurriedly asked, "What's happening? Why did you come out early?" The experts of the Dragon Valley, the 8-Wind Palace, and the Dark Red Palace all came forward to look for their people. Many people returned to their own camps. Among them, some people screamed, "What's going on? Where's Yulingzi?" The people of the Dark Moon Palace were the first to scream. This was because they realized that their most outstanding genius, Yulingzi, who had entered this time, had disappeared. When the others heard this, they gasped. Yulingzi was a renowned peerless genius. Could it be that something had happened to him? Did a sage do it? The others sucked in a breath of cold air. At that moment, another scream was heard. Damn it, where's Long Shan? The others were stunned again. Long Shan was one of the peerless geniuses of the Dragon Valley. He was not inferior to Yulingzi. Moreover, his physique was so strong that no one could compare to him. Had he disappeared too? Many people gloated. They did not expect that 2 peerless geniuses would die in the void ocean. However, soon they were stunned again. It was not just 2. In the end, they were all trembling. Then, the people of the 8-Wind Palace and the Sikong family screamed one after another. Sikong Jing, Huang Batian, and the others had also disappeared. Impossible, right? The surrounding elders all sucked in a breath of cold air. It would be normal if 1 or 2 peerless geniuses had died. After all, accidents happened all the time. But now, all the geniuses of the major clans and sects had disappeared. That was not normal. Who killed them? Damn it, who killed them? The people of the major clans and sects stared at the sages around them. In their opinion, only a sage would be able to kill so many geniuses at the same time. However, the elites of the major clans and sects were kneeling on the ground and crying crazily. The elders were not sages. It was Lin Wudi. He killed Yulingzi. What? Lin Wudi. On the other side, the people of the Dragon Valley were gnashing their teeth in anger. It was Lin Wudi who killed Long Shan. The surrounding people were stunned. It was Lin Wudi again. This Lin Wudi was too powerful, right? He had killed two peerless geniuses. Huang Batian was also killed by Lin Wudi. The elites of the Eight-Wind Palace looked extremely cold. The others were even more dumbfounded. The elites of the Vermilion Bird Palace gritted their teeth and said, "Damn it, it was Lin Wudi who killed several of our geniuses." Everyone was numb. It was all Lin Wudi's doing. Chapter 3397. They didn't think it was possible. They knew that the Sikong clan was not ordinary and had an inexplicable connection with the Void Ocean. The cultivators of the Void family who had entered in the past had their bloodline increased and were much stronger than those outside. Therefore, all of them looked at the Sikong clan. The Grand Elder of the Sikong clan stood up with a solemn expression. The surrounding cultivators were also very anxious. However, the people who came out were covered in blood, and their faces were extremely pale. They gritted their teeth and said, "Lin Wudi, it was Lin Wudi who killed Jing Er." What? Is it really Lin Wudi again? The people around the Void Ocean were in an uproar. Everyone was going crazy. Lin Wudi was very powerful, and no one among the half-saints could compare to him. It was even rumored that Yin Nantian, the successor of the great emperor, was no match for him. It could be said that his name resounded throughout the ancient path of the starry sky. However, no matter how powerful he was still just a young half-saint. This time, so many top geniuses from the great sects had brought along many other cultivators. There were saints among them. Could it be that even they couldn't stop Lin Wudi? What happened? Did Lin Wudi fight those people alone? They didn't know. Ah! The Grand Elder of the Sikong clan roared at the sky. His white hair danced wildly in the wind, and his eyes were terrifying. The murderous aura on his body was too terrifying. At this moment, he was like a god of death floating in the void, causing the people around him to tremble non-stop. The people of the Sikong clan even knelt on the ground. The Grand Elder floated in the void, and his piercing voice resounded in all directions. "Where is Lin Wudi? Get over here." His voice was like thousands of sword chi, causing everyone's scalps to tingle. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they couldn't help but look in one direction. That direction was where the people of the Langia Star were. They knew that Lin Wudi had come with the people of the Langia Star. At this moment he should have returned there. Countless gazes looked over. In the next moment they were stunned. They saw the cultivators of the Langia Star standing there. However, they did not see Lin Wudi. He only saw the dragon with Lin Wudi, as well as Yen Ryu and the Northern Demon. However, Lin Wudi had all disappeared. Where's Lin Wudi? Did he perish together with those geniuses? This was what everyone was thinking. They felt that if this was the case, it was still acceptable. We don't know. When we were teleported out, that kid wasn't dead yet. Maybe he's still in the Great Sage Tower. The powerhouse from the Sikong clan said in a deep voice. What? When the others heard this, they were all stunned and looked at the Sikong clan one after another. The Grand Elder was also stunned. He floated down excitedly, and the killing intent on his body was still very strong. He asked coldly, "The Great Sage Pagoda? Could it be the Great Sage Pagoda of our Sikong clan?" That's right, after going through untold hardships, we finally found our Great Sage Pagoda. We went in, and it was full of treasures. The members of the Sikong clan quickly recounted what had happened previously. When they heard that there was really the Great Sage Pagoda inside, they were all stunned. This was because previously, the Great Sage of the Sikong clan had entered the Void Ocean. It was only a rumor. How many tens of thousands of years had that happened? Even if someone had seen it before after so many years, those who had seen it with their own eyes had long died and turned into dust. What these people had heard now was only a legend. They did not think that the Sikong clan had the Great Sage. However, now that the Great Sage Pagoda had appeared, it meant that the Great Sage had really appeared in the Sikong clan. Moreover, They had really entered the void ocean. What's going on? What's with these injuries on your bodies? Could it be that you encountered sea demons? Or did Lin Wuti injure you? The Grand Elder looked at the members of the Seacone clan and frowned. The others were also very puzzled. Yes, they had only just noticed that the members of the Seacone clan had suffered the most serious injuries out of all the people who had come out. How could this be? Hadn't they entered the Great Sage Pagoda? Didn't their own family's Great Sage Pagoda have any protective measures? It wasn't Lin Wuti, but them. One of the powerhouses stood up with an extremely cold expression. He pointed at the Vermilion Bird Palace, 8 Desolate Hall, Dragon Valley and Dark Moon Palace. These people wanted our treasures, so they joined forces to attack us. We narrowly escaped death and were almost killed. If we had not used the power of our bloodline to activate the Great Sage Pagoda, we would have all perished by now. What? The surrounding people were stunned. The other powerhouses' mouths were also twitching. How could such a thing happen? It was really too shocking. The 8 Desolate Hall and the other sects who had attacked frowned. Among them, the powerhouses who had originally been there to receive them also felt their eyelids twitch wildly. What was going on? Why had they suddenly joined forces to attack the members of the Seacone clan? Furthermore, they were in the Great Sage Pagoda? What the hell was going on? Those people had awkward looks on their faces. Among them, the powerhouse from the Vermilion Bird Palace sneered. Haha, I think this is a misunderstanding. Previously, we were all deceived by Lin Wuti. It was Lin Wuti who instigated the conflict between us. That's why the two of us fought. What? Lin Wuti again? The others were stunned. This young man was too terrifying. First, he killed so many geniuses from the large sections. Then he instigated internal strife between the large sections. What about the other side? Had the other side already taken advantage of the situation? Hearing the other party's words, the members of the Seacone clan snorted coldly. Damn it, even if Lin Wuti was the one who instigated the conflict, in the end, it was because these people were greedy that they attacked. The Grand Elder looked at the large sects of the Vermilion Bird Palace and temporarily suppressed the killing intent in his heart. After all, it wasn't good to fall out with them now. That was because there were too many sects that had attacked, and none of them were weaker than the Seacone clan. It was very unwise to become enemies with all of them at the same time. Therefore, he snorted coldly in his heart. This matter would be settled later. The most important thing now was the Great Sage Pagoda. How was it? Seeing that the people from the Seacone clan didn't get angry, the surrounding people were also speechless. It seemed that the older, the wiser. They weren't willing to suffer losses. As for the people from the Vermilion Bird Palace, they breathed a sigh of relief. Although they had attacked first, when the time came, they could directly return to the sect and cultivate in seclusion for a few hundred years. The Seacone clan wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Everyone pricked up their ears because they also wanted to know how the Great Sage Pagoda was doing. According to these people, there were all kinds of treasures in the Great Sage Pagoda. Any one of them could move a saint. However, the news that followed made them stunned. Because the people from the Seacone clan directly said that they didn't know. They used the power of their bloodline to activate the Great Sage Pagoda. And the statue of the Great Sage seemed to have awakened. However, it shot out a red light and teleported everyone out. Chapter 3398. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Grand Elder of the Seacone family also had an ugly look on his face. Could it be that all their efforts were in vain? Some of the sages also sighed inwardly. It was such a pity. If they could obtain the statue of the Great Sage, they might be able to obtain his inheritance. However, now that they were out, it would be difficult for them to enter the void ocean again. They would probably have to wait until the next opening. Sounds of regret could be heard one after another. Many people shook their heads. The people of the Seacone family were also in despair. However, at that moment a voice sounded. That might not be the case. There was still one person who hadn't come out. When these words were spoken, everyone was stunned. They all began to look around. Who exactly was the one who spoke? Who was it? Why was he acting so sneakily? The experts of the Sikong family also roared in anger. At that moment a figure appeared. The phantom of the 4 divine beasts and the 9 emperor runes made him look like a celestial emperor. It was Yin Nantian. Everyone screamed. The people of the Vermilion Bird Palace also heaved a sigh of relief. When they didn't find Yin Nantian earlier, they thought that he had also died. Now that they saw him again, they were shocked. They knew that Yin Nantian must have been secretly hiding his aura. Young Master Yin, what do you mean? The Grand Elder of the Sikong family asked in a low voice. Yin Nantian smiled. I also entered the Great Sage Pagoda and brought it with me for a long time, so I was sent out later. Before I was sent out, there was another person inside. It seemed that he wasn't affected. He was probably still inside. What? Someone brought the Great Sage Pagoda? Who is it? Is it someone from the Sikong family? Many people were nervous. The Grand Elder was also excited. However, Yin Nantian shook his head. It's Lin Wudi. He's still inside. Lin Wudi. It's him again. Everyone was stunned. They originally thought that Lin Wudi had died together with Yu Lingzi and the others since he hadn't appeared. However, it seemed that wasn't the case. Lin Wudi was still inside. Those people's eyes instantly turned red. The Great Sage Pagoda was a treasure trove left behind by the Great Sage, and there was only Lin Wudi inside. Then, wouldn't he have to obtain all of the Great Sage's treasures? These people were so angry that smoke was coming out of their heads. In an instant, many experts turned to look at the Langya star. Saint Mubai of the Langya star had already heard about the incident from the dark red divine dragon. To be honest, he was a little worried. At the same time, he was secretly happy and worried. He was worried about Lin Xian's safety. After all, those red eyes and the moving corpse of the great sage sent chills down his spine. However, there was also a hint of joy because Lin Xian had finally found the statue of the great god. At this moment, when he heard that Lin Xian had done so many things, the corner of his mouth twitched. This guy was really not easy to deal with. However, since the Langya star had already placed a lot of bets on Lin Xian, they naturally had to stand on Lin Xian's side. Therefore, at this moment, when he saw the gazes of so many experts, Saint Mubai snorted coldly and emitted a terrifying aura. On the spirit ship behind him, several figures appeared. Each of them had a very powerful aura. These days, many experts had already lined up on the Langya star because once Lin Xian took out the statue of the great sage, it would be very eye-catching. That would be very eye-catching. So he naturally had to take protective measures. The people of the Sikong family also looked at the Langya star. However, now that Lin Xian had not come out, they couldn't directly attack the Langya star. They retracted their gazes and looked at Yin Nantian. Was he serious? Of course. And I saw with my own eyes that Lin Wudi used his sword to break the statue of the great sage. I wonder what he was doing. Perhaps it was because he broke the statue of the great sage that everyone behind was teleported out. What? The expressions of the surrounding people changed again. The statue of the great sage was broken by the other party. What a prodigal son. They were so angry that their bodies trembled. The supreme elder of the Sikong family was also so angry that he vomited blood. Saint Mabai's eyes flickered. He had already heard about this from the dark red divine dragon. Of course, he knew that there was a corpse inside the statue of the great sage. It was very likely to be the corpse of the great sage. If he could obtain the corpse of the great sage, then the effect of suppressing the demonic aura would be even more terrifying than the statue of the great sage. Oh right, I guess that he broke the statue of the great sage because he thought that there was the inheritance of the great sage inside. Yin Nantian said lightly. What? Everyone was going crazy. The inheritance of the great sage. That was more precious than any other treasure. Other than Yin Nantian who didn't need it, everyone else needed it. This Lin Wudi was too despicable. Damn it, they couldn't leave. They had to wait for that kid to come out. They had to catch him. They couldn't let him keep the treasure for himself. The people of the Vermilion Bird Palace were the first to speak. Then the people of the Dragon Valley and the Eight Wind Palace followed suit. The people of the Sikong family shouted coldly. They naturally wouldn't leave, because that was their inheritance. Everything in the Great Sage Pagoda must belong to them. Lin Xian or whatever he was, he had to capture him and tear him to shreds. Everyone was aggressive as they searched in all directions. Some people even set up formations to cover the space within a radius of tens of millions of miles. In front of them, the void sea was incomparably deep. However, they couldn't enter and could only wait. They were waiting for the other party to come out. The atmosphere became heavy, but the murderous intent in everyone's eyes didn't weaken at all. In the void sea, in the great sage pagoda, everyone had been teleported away except for Lin Xian. At this moment, Lin Xian's body was enveloped by the great dragon sword soul. He released a terrifying aura that cut off the red light. That was why he hadn't been teleported away. He didn't get too close. At this moment he had already left the vicinity of the great sage statue. Instead he was in the great sage pagoda, looking in all directions. There were many seals around him that sealed many treasures. However, he had tried to break these seals, but it was very difficult. Previously, he had broken them because of the Sikong family bloodline. However, at this moment, there was no blood of the Sikong family on the ground. This was because the powerhouses of the Sikong family had used their blood to activate the Great Sage Pagoda. Therefore, he was thinking that he wouldn't be able to find the blood. He had no choice but to look in all directions. Suddenly, his expression froze as he stared in a certain direction. That direction was the direction of the Great Sage statue. The statue of the Great Sage had been shattered into pieces, and was now strewn all over the ground. Inside the statue of the Great Sage, in addition to the other items that belonged to the Great Sage's corpse, there was also a stone, which the man held in his hand. That thing was only the size of an apple. It was very chaotic and incomparably dark. However, there wasn't much light, and it looked like an ordinary stone. However, after Lin Xian saw it, his entire body trembled. It was actually an elemental magnetic stone. The other party was actually holding an elemental magnetic stone in his hand. What was going on? He was really stunned. Chapter 3399. Previously, the Langya star had given him news that the void ocean did not have the whereabouts of the magnetite. Perhaps he would need to go out and look for it again. But now he had actually found the whereabouts of the magnetite. It seemed that the Great Sage Pagoda was a self-contained space that was not inferior to the void ocean. That was why the Langya star did not calculate it. But now he could not care so much. The magnetite was right in front of him. And he still had the 5 great Tao stones in his hand. He had an idea in his mind. He could comprehend the Tao here. Although this was also a small space, the laws of heaven and earth followed the great Tao of heaven and earth outside. Therefore, there was no difference between comprehending the Tao here and outside. Moreover, he was the only one in the Great Sage Pagoda. He was safer here. At least he would not be attacked by others. After thinking about it, he was stunned in the end. Would he really not be attacked? The Great Sage's corpse was very strange. Those eyeballs could move. Did this mean that the other party was alive or dead? He did not know. However, he should seize the magnetite first. Su Chen took a deep breath, stomped his foot, turned into a sword light, and rushed over. In an instant he arrived near the Great Sage statue. He reached out his hand, wanting to seize the magnetite in the Great Sage statue. Buzz! The golden hand grabbed the magnetite. Lin Xian's face was filled with joy, but at this moment he was shocked. Not good. He saw that the red eyes suddenly turned and stared at him. In the next moment he felt a pain in his soul. A terrifying red light surged into his mind. Not good. Possession. Lin Xian was shocked and froze on the spot. He frantically mobilized his soul and the great dragon sword soul to start a counterattack. He was not dead. The Great Sage was not dead? Did his soul still exist? Moreover, did the other party want to seize his body? Lin Xian was too shocked. The great dragon sword soul roared. Lin Xian did not hold back at this moment. The biting cold sword light cut through the air and directly repelled the red light. In the next moment, Lin Xian's body shook and he retreated. He looked bewildered. Cold sweat flowed down his forehead. Almost. At that moment just now, if he had been a step later, he would have been possessed. Who are you? Was it a human or a ghost? Lin Xian shouted coldly. However, to his surprise, the red light actually disappeared. The statue of the great sage no longer moved, as if it had completely died. Could that scene just now be a dream? Unbeknownst to Lin Xian, he grabbed the magnetic stone with his large golden hand and quickly descended downwards. After some thought, Lin Xian felt that the statue of the great sage was too evil. Therefore, he left the great sage pagoda and went outside. He decided to transcend the tribulation near the great sage tower. In any case, during the lightning tribulation, the sea demons in the water wouldn't dare to approach. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath. With a wave of his hand, 5 Dao stones appeared and floated beside him. In his hand he held the Yuan magnet. Finally he could begin. Now as a half-sage he could kill a first heaven sage. He wondered how powerful he would be after he broke through and became a sage. Thinking of this, he felt a burst of excitement, but he still suppressed the excitement in his heart. First, he used 3 days to adjust his body to its peak state. Then he began to prepare for the breakthrough. What he was going to break through was not simply a single nomological law, but the fusion of the 5 elemental laws into one. Therefore, the difficulty of breaking through was much higher than that of an ordinary sage. Lin Xian began to use the 5 elemental nomological law fragments, floating in the middle. Then, with the Yuan magnet as the foundation, he began to fuse them. Gradually, a trace of thunder appeared above his head. Terrifying lightning surged and was about to fall. However, it didn't fall. Instead, the area of the dark clouds grew larger and larger, directly covering the entire sky. Roar. This scene directly caused the sea demons in the void sea to roar uneasily. Many of them crawled on the ground, but more fled. The surrounding sea became a deserted area, and there was only one person. Of course, there was also the Great Sage Pagoda. The Great Sage Pagoda stood there, motionless. Even in the face of such a terrifying heavenly tribulation, it was not affected in the slightest. However, the eyes of the Great Sage statue in the Great Sage Pagoda emitted a red light again. Its originally stiff face unexpectedly revealed a strange smile. Outside, the 5 elemental nomological law fragments began to fuse under the combined effect of the Yuan magnet. At this moment, his body trembled because a red light rushed out from the Great Sage Pagoda and pierced between his eyebrows. In an instant, Lin Xian felt the world spinning. Damn it, it's the other party again. Sure enough, there was an immortal existence here. Lin Xian roared. The great dragon sword soul rushed into his mind, blooming with an incomparable light that suppressed everything. At the same time, the heavenly tribulation above Lin Xian's head also fell. With a boom, the first heavenly tribulation fell. It was like a bugle horn of war. Endless thunder fell crazily one after another. This time, the thunder was too terrifying. Although it was a black cloud, the thunder that came out was actually the 5-colored divine thunder. With one strike, it penetrated Lin Xian's body. Golden blood flowed out, dyeing the surrounding sea red. In the next moment, Lin Xian's body was engulfed by the thunder. At this moment, the red light in his mind was also attacked by the great dragon sword soul, and kept retreating. Ah! Suddenly he screamed. The 5-colored divine thunder. You broke through the sage tribulation, and it's the sage tribulation of the 5 elements. He finally let out a sharp cry. I don't know what you are. I don't know if you're the remnant soul of the great sage. Since you want to seize my soul, then you can die now. Lin Xian roared and ignored the red light, because he knew that it was most afraid of the heavenly tribulation. Now he wanted to resist the heavenly tribulation with all his strength. As expected, the red light did not attack. Instead, it fled crazily. It wanted to escape. Lin Xian took a step forward and chased after it. The heavenly tribulation continued to fall, hitting the red light and making it scream crazily. However, the red light was still too strange. It broke away from the 5-colored divine thunder and went into the Great Sage Pagoda. Lin Xian did not continue to pursue it. Instead, he resisted it. The terrifying heavenly tribulation was really too terrifying. With his strength, he almost couldn't resist it. In an instant, his body was broken into pieces. However, with a roar, his body was reassembled. Otherwise, Lin Xian would have pulled the great dragon sword soul out and let him go through the heavenly tribulation together. The great dragon sword spirit roared and soared into the sky amidst the 5-colored divine lightning. Just like that, the two of them silently endured the heavenly tribulation. Chapter 3400. 2 months. 3 months. Outside, the experts around the void ocean were also waiting patiently. However, they were getting impatient. 3 months had passed, and the other party still hadn't come out? What was going on? The void ocean was already closed. Could the other party still come out? He wouldn't be trapped inside, would he? Someone was puzzled. The others were also worried. Even the dark red divine dragon, and the others were worried. Was Lin Xian really okay? They knew that the eyes of the Great Sage Tower could move. There might be some terrifying existence inside. If that existence attacked, would Lin Xian be able to withstand it? All of this was unknown. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. The people outside were getting impatient, but they didn't leave because the Great Sage Tower and the inheritance of the Great Sage were too tempting. Even if they had to wait for 10 years, they would still wait, let alone half a year. In the void ocean, the red lightning tribulation was still going on, and it was getting more and more violent. However, the figure inside was getting stronger and stronger. It was Lin Xian. After half a year of accumulation, Lin Xian's physique was much stronger than before. He emitted an extremely strong aura. The fragments of the 5 elements laws around him were also condensing quickly, and its power was even more terrifying than before. Lin Xian was bathed in the lightning tribulation. He raised his head and looked at the Great Sage Tower in front of him. After half a year, he had already adapted to the 5 elements lightning tribulation. Next, he would start to fight back. After all, he knew that there was a remnant soul in the Great Sage statue. As for whether it was the Great Sage's remnant soul, he didn't know. However, if he wanted to get the Great Sage statue and bring it out, he had to fight with the remnant soul. He might as well take advantage of the fact that the 5-colored lightning tribulation was still there, and kill it directly. As soon as he thought of this, Lin Xian stomped his foot and charged towards the Great Sage Tower. As he moved, the 5-colored lightning tribulation quickly followed him, and charged towards the tower. In an instant, it blasted on the Great Sage Tower. The Great Sage Tower shook violently. However, it was not damaged. After all, it was a sacred item of the Great Sage. Its power was definitely beyond imagination. After Lin Xian entered the Great Sage Pagoda, he directly rushed towards the 3rd floor. Along the way, he brought along 5-colored lightning to shatter the void inside the Great Sage Pagoda. Soon he arrived at the 3rd level. Then, without slowing down, he rushed to the top. Originally, the Great Sage Pagoda was incomparably quiet. But as Lin Xian entered, the Great Sage statue above suddenly exploded with a scarlet light. Then a sharp roar was heard. "You're courting death." That voice was filled with resentment and fear. He had not expected that the other party would actually come and kill him. Furthermore, he had brought along the lightning tribulation. In the blink of an eye, he ran off. However, Lin Xian simply laughed heartily as he approached the statue of the Great Sage. It enveloped the statue of the Great Sage. "You escaped? That's even better. I wanted the statue of the Great Sage in the first place. You're just a lonely soul. Without the corpse of the Great Sage, what right do you have to be arrogant in front of me? Relying on the corpse of the Great Sage? Humph, you reckless brat. Do you think you can do anything to me just because you have the lightning tribulation? You're too naive. I'm not in existence that you can imagine." As he said that, the red light screamed, and the 9 heavens and 10 lands shook. In the sea of lightning, Lin Xian's body swayed and he almost fell. His face was incomparably pale. There was nothing he could do. The soul attack was too strong, so strong that it was beyond his expectations. Damn it, what kind of existence is this? Could it really be the remnant soul of the Great Sage? Thinking of this, he gasped. The remnant soul of the Great Sage was so terrifying. Fortunately, he was transcending the tribulation now, so he could withstand it. Looking at the state of the lightning tribulation, it wouldn't disappear for a while. It would probably take at least half a year. Lin Xian calmed down. With the lightning tribulation, he wasn't afraid of the other party, so he rushed over. In the following days, Lin Xian chased after the red light figure. The red light figure roared again and again. In the end, it felt that it couldn't escape, so it directly entered the corpse of the great sage again. An incomparable light burst out, and it fought with Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't fight it head-on. Instead, he used the power of the lightning tribulation to fight it. Not only that, the great dragon sword spirit also made a move. The great dragon sword spirit had been bathing in the lightning tribulation. At this moment, its power was stronger than before. Countless sword chi slashed out, and the red light figure kept retreating. The red light screamed crazily. It didn't expect that the other party had the great dragon sword. Just like that, another half a year passed. Gradually, the red light disappeared. They couldn't find anything. The statue of the great sage was still standing there. Although it was hit by the lightning tribulation, it wasn't damaged at all. It should be destroyed. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. That kind of evil thing couldn't survive after being hit by the lightning tribulation for half a year, no matter how strong it was. After all, it wasn't the real great sage. It was a resentful spirit formed many years after the death of the great sage. Just like that, Lin Xian relaxed and began the final tribulation. However, when he combined the 5 elements, he was attacked by the red light again. Lin Xian was injured. His body collapsed and turned into a bloody mist. Damn it! Lin Xian was angry. The other party was still alive. He directly sent the great dragon sword spirit into the statue of the great sage, and kept attacking. Terrifying sword chi filled every inch of space. The red light finally couldn't take it anymore. He directly used the righteous chi of heaven and earth to eject the great dragon sword spirit. Lin Xian was sent flying as well. The asterisk eminent, this guy was too evil. He didn't continue to attack, because he was almost at the final juncture. Therefore, he directly rushed out of the great sage tower, and began the final tribulation. 5 elements as one. The fragments of the 5 laws of nature converged together to form a 5-colored divine chain that revolved around his body, making him appear extraordinarily mighty. The final lightning tribulation was even more terrifying. It actually formed a human figure. The human figure of the lightning tribulation was fighting with Lin Xian. This battle lasted for 3 months. Lin Xian destroyed the human figure. The law fragments in his body had completely turned into true laws. The 5 elemental laws turned into 5-colored light. At this moment, the 5 elemental laws were finally condensed successfully. Lin Xian, on the other hand, became a true saint. Ah! With a roar, the 9 heavens and 10 lands shook. Once Lin Xian's 5 elemental laws were released, the unparalleled power was really too strong. An ordinary first firmament sage was not enough to look at in front of him. Lin Xian also had the confidence to fight against the second firmament sage. If this spread, it would be too unbelievable. After all, at the sage realm, the change in strength with each firmament was very great. Previously, all the people Lin Xian encountered were only first firmament sages, but they were already so terrifying. One could imagine how terrifying a second firmament sage's birthday was. But now, even if Lin Xian faced a second firmament sage, he didn't have the slightest fear. Chapter 3401. At this moment, the great dragon sword soul was getting stronger and stronger. There were clear scales around it, and those scales were actually the spirits of laws. It seemed that the great dragon sword soul had also broken through. Buzz! Lin Xian fused with the great dragon sword soul, and his strength rose again. At this moment, even the saint-level sea monsters roared anxiously. The great sage tower shook nonstop. Lin Xian directly rushed into the great sage tower. The red light let out a sharp cry again. You've broken through. He directly mobilized the righteous energy of heaven and earth and attacked quickly. Lin Xian fought with it and charged forward. The great dragon sword soul transformed into the 10,000 dragons picture and sealed the entire great sage statue. The great sage statue counterattacked crazily, but in the end, Lin Xian had already become a sage. Once the 5 elemental laws were used, its power was boundless. In addition to the great dragon sword soul, the red light kept shaking and would disappear at any time. Stop, you can't kill me. Finally, an old voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Lin Xian snorted coldly and was unmoved. He continued to seal and attack. Finally, the red light couldn't take it anymore. He seemed to have mobilized the entire great sage statue. The great sage statue moved and launched a shocking attack. It collided with the red light and screamed, "Stop, we can talk." Talk? Talk about what? Lin Xian sneered. When you tried to take over my body again and again, did you think about talking to me? I was wrong. I didn't expect you to be the successor of the great dragon sword soul, and have comprehended the 5 elemental laws. I underestimated your strength. I admit that I can't do anything to you now. However, if you push me too far, even if I can't kill you, I can make you stay here forever. Back then, I could even kill the Situ Supreme Sage, let alone you, who had just become a first heaven sage. You're just a kid. Although my strength has long been lost, I still have many tricks up my sleeve. You must not die together with me. The meaning of this threat was very clear. Lin Xian was originally disdainful, but when he heard one of the sentences he stopped. What did he mean? Aren't you the remnant soul of Sikong the Great Sage? He was simply too shocked. Originally, he thought that it was the great sage of the Sikong clan who hadn't died completely, and had left behind a wisp of his soul. But now, judging from the other party's tone, it seemed that the other party was the one who had killed Sikong Great Sage. The other party had actually killed a great sage. Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air, and felt a chill run down his spine. Who was this person? At the very least, he had to be a great sage of the same level. Humph, kid, am not Sikong the Great Sage, and am not a member of your human race. I am Black Mountain, known as the Great Sage of Black Mountain. You're right. I was the one who killed Sikong Great Sage. It was actually real. Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. There was actually such an ancient mystery. That despicable old man Sikong, what kind of righteous aura did he cultivate? How could he restrain me? So what? Although I'm a demon, the righteous aura of heaven and earth can't restrain me. In the end, I killed him. Of course, although I also died, I still retained a wisp of my soul. I borrowed his corpse and used the righteous aura to recuperate. I actually didn't die for tens of thousands of years. In the end, I still won this battle. Lin Xian fell silent. It seemed that they were another pair of old enemies. Previously, the 9-Sun Sword Sage had been killed by the Great Demon. However, in the end, the 9-Sun Sword Sage had also died with the Great Demon. In this generation, Lin Xian had killed the Great Demon. In the end, the Great Demon had summoned the first-generation demonic shadow, which had also almost killed him. If he didn't have the Eye of Spacetime back then, he would probably have perished together. It seemed that the situation between the Great Sage of Black Mountain and the Great Sage of Sikong was similar. The two of them had been entangled for countless years and finally perished together. However, the Great Sage of Black Mountain had actually left behind a wisp of his soul. So what if you tell me this secret? Even if I know that you're the remnant soul of the Great Sage, do you think he'll stop? Lin Xian's face sank again. Of course, although I'm the remnant soul of the Great Sage of Black Mountain, I've been entangled with this old man Sikong for too long. That's why I have the memories of the Great Sage of Sikong. If you want the complete legacy of the Great Sage of Sikong, I might not be able to give it to you. However, if you want to take the Great Sage Pagoda, it's possible. How about it, kid? Let's make a deal. I'll help you take the Great Sage Pagoda and you spare my life. Take the Great Sage Pagoda? Lin Xian took a deep breath, his eyes burning. To be honest, although he was tempted by the inheritance of the Great Sage of Sikong, he didn't really need it. He had the 2 great inheritances of the 9 Suns, and the Great Dragon Sword Spirit. It was enough for him to cultivate to the level of the Great Sage. However, he was indeed very jealous of the treasures in the Great Sage Pagoda. After all, his current resources were far inferior to the peerless sects like the Dragon Valley and the 8-Wind Palace. However, if he had the Great Sage Pagoda, it would be different. It could make up for the gap in resources. Therefore, Lin Xian was tempted. However, it was impossible to let the other party go so easily. Let him go. It's not that he couldn't. But the Great Sage Pagoda was not enough. You've ambushed me 3 times and the Great Sage Pagoda. I can't spare you from death. Unless, damn kid, don't push your luck. The Great Sage of Black Mountain roared crazily. He wanted to fight back, but he was beaten back again. In the end, he was like a deflated ball. He looked at the Great Dragon Sword Spirit with deep fear in his eyes. Damn kid, tell me. Unless what? It's very simple. Stay by my side, assist me when necessary, and help me for 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, I'll set you free. What? You want to imprison me for 1,000 years? Dream on. The Black Mountain was so angry that his whole body trembled. Although he was only a spiritual body and was very damaged, he was so angry that he vomited blood. Lin Xian sneered. If you don't agree, I'll destroy you now. Anyway, I'll give up this pagoda. I'll come and take it when I'm strong enough. Damn, you're ruthless. However, I can only assist you for 100 years. 500 years. Lin Xian stretched out a hand. If you're not willing, then there's no room for negotiation. 500 years it is. The Great Sage of Black Mountain gritted his teeth. Although it would take another 500 years, it was not bad for him to regain his freedom. Let's go, kid. Let me go. I'll use this Great Sage's corpse. The Great Sage of Black Mountain said. Lin Xian shook his head. No, you can't occupy the Great Sage of Saikong's corpse. I need this corpse. Therefore, you have to find another place to stay. Damn kid, you're pissing me off. The Great Sage of Black Mountain was so angry that his whole body trembled. However, he had no choice. He couldn't defeat the other party now. Moreover, he knew the power of the Great Dragon Sword Spirit. Even if he was the Great Sage of Tsang, if this kid was determined to kill him, he could kill him bit by bit. Chapter 3402. Lin Xian turned his head and found that there was a treasure inside the seal. It was a black pendant. The pendant was in the shape of a crescent moon and emitted a mysterious aura. It was a soul-type defensive treasure. Lin Xian was extremely surprised. As expected of the Great Sage, he really knew how to choose a place for himself. Lin Xian smiled. Why did you come out? Do you need my help? Before he finished speaking, the Great Sage of the Black Mountain's voice sounded. I can still do such a small trick. He directly broke the seal, then rushed out and floated to Lin Xian's side. I can take it with me, but let me make some arrangements so that you don't have to take over my body. What should I do? At this point, Lin Xian directly injected the aura of the Great Dragon Sword Soul into the Black Crescent Moon pendant. After confirming that there was no mistake, Lin Xian took it with him. He smiled because he knew that with the Great Dragon Sword Soul around, the other party would definitely not dare to be presumptuous. Because the other party looked at the Great Dragon Sword Soul with fear in his eyes. Speaking of which, Black Mountain, give me a few treasures first. Open these seals and let me choose. Lin Xian's eyes flickered, and he was very passionate. When the Great Sage of the Black Mountain heard this, he almost vomited blood. Don't even think about it. I'm just a remnant soul now. Although I'm the remnant soul of the Great Sage, my strength is not as strong as yours. Therefore, it's impossible to break the seal. Breaking the seal just now has already consumed all of my strength, so you want me to recuperate for a few years before telling you about breaking the seal. You tricked me. Didn't you just say that you can use the Great Sage Pagoda? Lin Xian's little face was a little dark. The Black Mountain chuckled. Haha, kid. I said that I can help you take the Great Sage Pagoda. As for the seal in the Great Sage Pagoda, I didn't say that I can help you break it. Damn, I've been tricked. This old monster is indeed not easy to deal with. Lin Xian gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. As long as he kept the Great Sage Pagoda, he would be able to decipher them one by one when he had the strength in the future. He said, All right, help me put away the Great Sage Pagoda first, then well prepare to leave. Okay, no problem. Watch me. Black Mountain floated out from the crescent moon pendant and filled the air like a haunted house. His eyes were bloodshot. A whistling sound could be heard. Then, using some unknown method, the entire Great Sage Tower flickered with light, and Lin Xian was forcefully teleported out. As for the Great Sage Pagoda, It gradually shrank and turned into a pagoda, floating in midair. He directly put away the great sage pagoda. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief. This trip to the void ocean was really fruitful. First, he subdued the remnant soul of the great sage and used it for himself. Then he collected the great sage tower. Most importantly, he broke through and became a sage. Moreover, he was a sage who had combined the 5 elements. His strength had increased greatly. Those enemies and opponents of the past were no longer a problem in front of him. Even Yin Nantian, Lin Xian did not take him seriously now. If Yin Nantian had not broken through, he would probably be able to kill him with a few slaps. However, at the mention of Yin Nantian he frowned. Yin Nantian was a very difficult enemy to deal with. Yin Nantian's talent was not inferior to his, and his opportunities were not less than his. If he broke through and became a sage, he would probably have many more tricks up his sleeve. At that time, it would be troublesome to kill him. Therefore Lin Xian said, "Black Mountain, hurry up. How do we get out? Think of a way? It's easy to get out. Do as I say and I guarantee that you will get out smoothly." Black Mountain laughed strangely. Then Lin Xian turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the void ocean. A year and a half had passed outside. However, no one came out. Everyone seemed to be very patient. On that day, a crack appeared in the void ocean again. Then a figure appeared. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw that. Their auras burst out crazily. "He's out. Someone came out. It's Lin Xian. It's that kid." Countless thunderclaps sounded. The surrounding array formations flickered, and a terrifying aura instantly shrouded the front. Lin Xian was originally dizzy, but in an instant he came to his senses. With a roar from the great dragon sword spirit, Lin Xian also unleashed a terrifying sword chi that swept in all directions. At the same time he struck out with his palm, and a huge palm of 5-colored light shot out. At the same time he used the Kuan Peng movement technique, and instantly tore through the void to arrive on the other side. All of that could be said to be smooth and decisive. Lin Xian dodged those attacks and arrived on the other side. His expression darkened. "Damn it, someone is ambushing me, and there are many of them." In the next moment, he saw a sea of people around him. The killing was monstrous, and there were even array formations flickering in the distance. It was simply an inescapable trap. "Damn kid, what did you do? Why are there so many people after you?" The great sage of the Black Mountain kept asking. Lin Xian said, "Shut up, can't you see that I'm in danger? Kid, you finally come out. Why don't you keep hiding? I thought you still had 100 more years. Hand over the inheritance of the great sage obediently, and I can spare your life. Kid, get over here and accept your death. How dare you kill the prodigy of my clan? I'll pull out your tendons and flay your bones. I'll let you live in hell for 10,000 years. Frenzied voices rang out one after another. Between the heavens and the earth, it was as though thunder was rumbling nonstop. Lin Xian swept his gaze around, and took a good look at the people around him. They were the Sikong family, Dragon Valley, Vermilion Bird Palace, 8 Desolate Hall, Dark Moon Temple, some sages and other families. These people should have known about what happened in the Great Sage Pagoda. They thought that he had obtained the inheritance of the Great Sage. Damn it, who started this rumor? Kid, you've finally come out. I thought you were dead. The dark red divine dragon and the others floated over. Yin Ryu was also worried. The North Demon heaved a sigh of relief. It's great that you're out. In the distance, Sage Mu Bai and the other experts of the Langia Star also surrounded Lin Xian to protect him. It's good that you're fine. Sage Mu Bai, they also heaved a sigh of relief. Because Lin Xian had unparalleled potential. If such a person died, it would be a huge loss. Lin Xian looked at Sage Mu Bai and smiled. I got it. Did I get it? Sage Mu Bai and the other experts of the Langia Star were also stunned. They thought that Lin Xian was lucky enough to come out alive. However, they did not expect that Lin Xian would also get it. What a surprise. Suddenly, Yin Ryu said in surprise. Your cultivation, your aura. She was really surprised. When the others sensed it, they immediately gasped. Sage, have you broken through to become a sage? The dark red divine dragon's face changed. Kid, did you encounter some danger that forced you to become a sage? You were just a little bit away from finding the magnetic stone and forming the 5 elemental laws. Chapter 3403. Lin Xian smiled. Don't worry, ruffian dragon. I'm already a 5 elements sage. 5 elements sage, did you find the origin magnetic stone? The dark red divine dragon also exclaimed in surprise. Lin Xian nodded. The others were also shocked. It seemed that Lin Xian's fortuitous encounter was indeed not a small one. He actually broke through to become a sage in 1.5 years. How terrifying would his battle prowess be? While they were reminiscing, the powerful cultivators on the other side roared. Damn it, did you not listen to me? Kill him. In an instant, countless figures rushed over. Dozens of powerful cultivators attacked at the same time. It was truly terrifying. There were even a few sages among them. How dare you attack in front of the Langya star? Do you think we don't exist? Sage Mabai's expression darkened. And so did the other powerful cultivators. Their eyes shone with a cold light as they waved their hands. A Langya mirror flew out and rolled in the sky, emitting a terrifying light. It was like a crescent moon that swept in all directions. Boom. The two forces collided in the air and exploded with an unparalleled light. The ancient mirror shook, and the other forces dissipated. The surrounding people's expressions were ugly. The Langya ancient mirror had actually brought such a treasure. It seemed that the Langya star had come prepared. So what if they came prepared? Are we not prepared? The surrounding people also snorted coldly. They might not be able to take down the Langya star on their own, but they had so many powerful forces. No matter how powerful the Langya star was, it would still be suppressed by them. Kid, hurry up and hand over the treasure in the Great Sage Pagoda. The people of the Sikong family roared crazily. They were the most impatient ones. Why waste time talking to him? They should just attack and take him down. The two sages of the Vermilion Bird Palace walked out and stared coldly at Lin Xian. They had wanted to attack him during the Vermilion Bird ranking competition last time. However, he managed to escape at that time. This time, they definitely wouldn't let him talk about it again. The two great sage cultivators unleashed their saint domains. Terrifying light shone like the sun, spreading out in all directions. As soon as the sage's aura was released, the faces of the surrounding experts and sky prides changed. Many of them retreated frantically. This was simply too frightening. It seemed that the Vermilion Bird Palace was determined to take action. Mu Bai snorted. Just as he was about to make a move, he was stopped by Lin Xian. Let me do it. He took a step forward, and an extremely cold light burst out from his eyes. The people of Vermilion Bird Palace still dare to be arrogant in front of me? He was really courting death. Boom. He raised his palm and slammed it forward. At this moment, the gigantic golden palm turned into 5 different colors. There were divine chains revolving around it. Walala. With a single palm strike, the space in front of him shattered, and the 2 saint realms were torn apart. Boom. The 2 sages exploded into a bloody mist. Their miserable cries made one's scalp go numb. What? Everyone went crazy. Their eyes widened in disbelief. His opponent had shattered 2 saints with a single palm strike. How could this be? Those were 2 sages. If he went all out, he would be able to suppress everything. How did this brat do it? How could his strength be so terrifying? What was that 5-colored light just now? Screams rang out. Everyone's mocking and cold expressions all changed. They became terrified and trembled. They realized that they could no longer see the young man in front of them clearly. 2 mere first heaven saints dared to be arrogant in front of him? They really didn't know what was good for them. Where was Yin Nantian? Tell him to come over and die. Lin Xian looked around. His most important task now was to find Yin Nantian. Then he would kill him. As soon as he said that, everyone's scalps went numb, and they subconsciously retreated. On the other hand, the people of Vermilion Bird Palace secretly cried out. Oh no, if Yin Nantian encountered them now, it would be very dangerous. However, to their relief, no one responded, and no one could find Yin Nantian. They wondered if that guy had escaped in advance. In front of them, the two Vermilion Bird Palace saints reformed their bodies from the bloody mist, but their expressions were unusually ugly. You've broken through to become a saint. Their bodies were also trembling nonstop. As soon as he said that, the others were also stunned. They carefully sensed and then gasped. Had the other party broken through to become a saint? Those young geniuses were about to go crazy. The other party was already very powerful, and they were no match for him at the same level. Now the other party had broken through to become a saint one step ahead of them. Who would be his match in the future? Yin Nantian? Didn't you see that Yin Nantian didn't dare to come out now? Indeed, Yin Nantian was nearby. However, the moment Lin Xian appeared, he disappeared without a trace. He used the secret technique of the great emperor's inheritance to hide his aura. That was because he felt that the other party had the aura of a saint's law. Damn it, he had condensed a true law, and it was a law of the 5 elements. Yin Nantian was extremely jealous because the other party had cultivated past him. One had to know that as the successor of the great emperor, he was unwilling to only condense one law. Therefore, he also wanted to condense many laws. However, he hadn't broken through yet, but he was very confident because he knew that with his qualifications and resources, he would definitely be the first to enter the saint realm among the younger generation. However, now someone was one step ahead of him. And that person was his mortal enemy, so he had no choice but to hide. If others knew what Yin Nantian was thinking, their jaws would drop in shock. Such an arrogant successor of the great emperor was like a coward at this moment, not daring to appear at all. Lin Xian was too powerful. In front of him, the two saints of the Vermilion Bird Palace gritted their teeth. So what if you've become a saint? Go to hell. Just now, the two of us were careless and unprepared. That's why we were ambushed by you. The two of them roared crazily, and the laws on their bodies soared again. However, the result was very tragic. Lin Xian's palm was surrounded by 5 colored divine chains, and he kept slamming them down like the hand of a god. 2 moves. The other party was beaten into a bloody mist again. The two saints screamed as if they had gone mad. Much of their saint blood had been wiped out. This had already hurt their foundation, so their faces were incomparably pale. The other people of the Vermilion Bird Palace also stepped forward and carefully protected the two of them. A first heaven saint dares to be arrogant in front of me? Lin Xian looked at the two saints with a disdainful expression. Was he really just a young man? He actually dared to look down and mock the saints? His strength was too terrifying. This guy had already become a saint, and it would be very difficult to subdue him in the future. I seem to have seen the figure of a young great emperor. After all, only the top sects like the Vermilion Bird Palace and the Xikong family had the strength to fight for it. The others who stayed here were just there to watch the show. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.